You may even get tired of winning, and you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Oh, son of a bitch.
I'm gonna come.
Salute.
I'm gonna come.
Oh, look at my African American over here. Look at him.
I don't really care, Margaret.
The N-word. Go home to mommy.
I like how you.
Man, I think the best thing that I've done in my entire career of being an online personality or podcaster or whatever is that intro. It is Friday. The highlight of my week is the, 90 seconds or whatever it is that we get to sit and watch that intro. Always gets me hyped. How you guys doing? This is, I believe, officially the latest LABE start time ever. And you guys should be thankful that there is a LABE happening. Those of you who are here watching, you're very blessed. I got home much later than I wanted to. It took about 7 hours to drive from, actually a little over 7 hours, to drive from Dallas back down here because it was, traffic was, I suppose I should have thought about this, but driving from Dallas to San Antonio basically on Friday afternoon, evening was not one of my greatest choices, but it was kind of unavoidable. Had to do it. Only way we could make it happen. And all is well. I'm finally here, and got a good LABE. We're gonna SUDAWAVE. I got a Yarvin thing to read you guys, and some good news. Some happenings are happening. We'll also talk a little bit about Blake Neff, former producer for Tucker Carlson, who was taken under the wing of one Mr. Charlie Kirk. And so we'll talk about that story. But yeah, I am here. Made it. Yesterday was interesting. I woke up in the morning and had a text message. I think I went to bed got off the LABE and I was all kind of wound up and had a couple more things I had to get done, get the show posted and everything, and went to bed about 5, I think. Got up about 8:30. Had a text message from the dealer, the Ford dealer up in Dallas, and needed to know the name of my company to get the credit app through. So I told him, and then it was the waiting game, sitting there waiting to find out if because like the whole thing was, okay, am I going to get approved? And if I do, then I need to get up there ASAP. But am I going to get approved today? Today being yesterday. Am I going to get approved today? Am I going to get approved tomorrow? Is it which day? Which day are we going to make this happen? We got to go to church tomorrow. We got a baptism, and we're staying at a hotel Sunday night because we're flying out really early Monday morning. And we still got a bunch of errands and other stuff we got to do before we leave. Haven't even begun packing, much to my poor wife's chagrin. Tomorrow is, shout out to my sister Annika. Tomorrow is her birthday. Happy birthday to my sweet dear Ani, little Ani bug, as we've I don't know if I think I might be the only one who still calls her that, but happy birthday to Ani. So we're gonna celebrate her birthday. So a whole bunch of very, very busy weekend, and I needed to find out if I was gonna get approved. If I wasn't gonna get approved, it was gonna have to be Amy. We were gonna have to figure out a way to get Amy up there, and basically it was probably gonna be all of us going up there. And then she's got some dog sitting stuff that she's doing that she has to be here. So we were like moving pieces around and had everything was kind of up in the air, and yeah, even Amy hasn't started packing yet, which is, things have been crazy if we're leaving on Monday and it's Friday night and Amy hasn't even started packing. She's usually packed like a week ahead of time. But so as soon as I heard from him, it was about 12:30, and 12:30 in the afternoon, he said, "Good to go," and is even better deal than I was expecting. Just we absolutely stole that truck from him. When I was up there today, I think I could kind of tell by the body language of the finance manager and the guy I was talking to was the general sales manager. They were kind of like, yeah, take your fucking truck and get out. Like, you just stole this thing from us. Finance manager's like, wow, that's a really big rebate. That's impressive. And then I didn't buy his like special warranty package, and body language changed, and he was like, all right, let's get this shit done. So yeah, finally got the word, and so immediately reserved the rental car, reserved the hotel, jumped in the shower. Amy came back, picked me up, drove me down, picked up the rental car, and then hightailed it up to Dallas, and ended up getting there probably around, I think I got in at a little after 10 p.m. and met up with a great friend of the show. Shout out to David. Very, very good friend of the show. Very good guy. He drove 45 minutes out to meet up with me and had a steak dinner and some beers and talked for a little while, and that was very good. That was nice. After one thing I learned, do not buy a Nissan Rogue. Holy crap. At least like maybe it's just like the base model has the shitty seats or something. The most uncomfortable vehicle seat that I have ever sat in. It was horrifying. My ass cheeks were numb after like an hour and a half in it. And I spent like 6 hours driving up there. Worst seats I've ever experienced. Absolutely terrible. I've always been kind of like, Nissan Rogue. I might, it's kind of one of those that's on the list, sort of, because they're usually relatively inexpensive. No, man, you couldn't pay me to drive one of those on a regular basis. But so I finally got to bed. Probably, I think it was about 2:30 when I got to sleep, and woke up about 8 this morning. Had to take the car over, drop it off at the rental place, and grab an Uber back to the dealership. Got all the paperwork signed and all that, and turned out so originally what I'd agreed on with the broker was it was a blue one. The blue one was the one I really wanted. Antimatter blue. It was beautiful, beautiful color. But he had a mix-up with the other dealership he was working with, and they sold it out from under him. So he connected me to these guys, and we'd agreed on a gray one, dark gray, carbonized gray metallic. And then there was a mix-up there, and the manufacturer had actually taken that over to a fair for some kind of display or something like that. And he was like, but I got a white one. And I was like, I mean, all right, this is, I waited until now to get this done, and we got a cramped timeline, so it's just a car. Who cares what the color is? But it turns out actually it's a really cool white. I don't like white cars because I don't want to look like I'm driving like a utility vehicle. I don't want it to look like I'm driving a county maintenance worker vehicle or something like that. but this white is pretty interesting. It's like it's kind of a bluish grayish sort of white. I think it's space white metallic or something like that. It's pretty cool. It actually looks pretty sharp. So so yeah, it's great. Incredibly comfortable. The ride is super smooth, very comfortable. It's definitely a step down from the Ram that we had in terms of like interior, but it's also 2 trims lower than the one we had before. So it's Spartan, utilitarian, gets the job done. So it was fine. It was fine. Driving back was as good as a 7-hour drive in constant traffic could possibly be. And the Life 360 app apparently alerted my wife that I was going fast, but it undersold it. It told her I was going 96 and I was going 101. There is a toll highway here around. It goes around the outside of Austin. The speed limit is 85 miles per hour, and nobody. I mean, the rule in Texas is you go 10 over basically everywhere. So if the speed limit is 85, then everyone goes 95. And in this case, it would actually have been unsafe for me to go the speed limit, because when I hit 101, I wasn't the fastest person in the little pack of cars there. I was in the right lane, and there was people they weren't flying past me, but they were coming up and passing me. So it was the safe decision to go 101. But I hadn't driven one yet. I'd heard a lot about them. I'd read a bunch of reviews and studied on them and everything, but a lot of people were like, it is an insanely quick vehicle, and oh boy, is it ever. It is very, very fun to drive. So yeah, got back home finally about 7:30 or so. Amy took it for a little spin around the block. She's gonna have to get used to the one pedal driving. Took me probably 2 hours or so to get used to it, and even now I'm still a little clunky with it. But it's actually, as I've been getting used to it, it's actually really nice to drive that way. You basically only use the brake for like emergency or urgent braking, and otherwise it does the regenerative braking. So as it automatically brakes, it recharges the battery. It's pretty cool. So it's plugged in downstairs, and looking forward to the next 3 years with our first electric vehicle experience. I'll keep you guys updated on anything that happens with it. One pedal, it has 2 pedals, but if you turn on the one pedal driving feature, then you just use the throttle. So you're just feathering it in and out. You don't like let your foot off and coast, because if you fully let your foot off, then it will automatically brake it and it'll slow it down. So you slowly apply the throttle. It's a lot touchier than like a normal gas vehicle. So you like slowly feather the throttle in, it accelerates, and then you slowly feather it off, and it will automatically brake. And so you just kind of got to get used to it, and you never have to actually touch the brake, except for an emergency stop or something like that. It's pretty cool. Yeah, letting off yields free electrons. That's right. ER Hank, you know the thing. So, anyways, see you in the camp says, what did you get? I got a Ford Lightning, F-150 Lightning. It does not have the self-driving cruise control. It's kind of funny. It's funny that it doesn't have that, because it has all the other things. It has like the lane. It'll buzz you or I turned the auto steer thing off. Like the vehicles that have the lane departure, if it beeps, it'll piss me off. If it steers the car back in, it kind of bounces you off the sides of the lane. Drives me crazy. I cannot stand it. But this one, it does have a setting where you can set it where it'll just vibrate the steering wheel gently if you're starting to drift out of the lane. So I put it on that. And then what else does it have? It's got the 360 camera, the blind spot detectors, rear cross traffic alert. It does have the emergency braking assist, but it does, and it has cruise control, but it doesn't have the cruise control that automatically speeds up and slows down based on other vehicles in front or behind, which is kind of funny because that's the first time that I ever saw that feature was, let's see, 12 years ago when I was selling Subarus. The Subarus were starting to have them back then, and it's pretty common now in a lot of vehicles. So I was kind of surprised that it didn't have it. But I always end up taking over anyways when I have that on. So I have to pay extra for Blue Cruise. That actually is not Blue Cruise capable, unfortunately. I got the XLT, so it's not the lowest trim, it's the next trim up. And basically like the one thing that it doesn't have from the Ford suite of things is the Blue Cruise. But it does have I did get it, so basically stole the truck from him, and I guess the general sales manager, and I was on the phone with him. He was like, "So what's your company? Like what do you do?" And I said, yeah, I'm a podcaster, internet streamer. And he said, "Oh, what do you talk about? What's the content?" And it's funny when I have these conversations because I kind of gotta feel the person out just a little bit. But he seemed like a trustworthy fellow. And I said politics, current events, culture, religion. And he kind of paused for a second and he goes, "Are you left wing or right wing?" And he said, "Are you on the left or the right?" And I said, "Oh, very much on the right." And he said, "Good." So then we wound up talking politics for a little bit, which was funny. So and I wore this shirt there today, the "Thank you for your attention to this matter" shirt, and got a couple of sort of like head nods. People thought it was funny. So I was among patriots up there, which was good to see. Oh, but now I'm back. I'm home. We're gonna do a labe, and then we are going to. I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I will do one more labe before I leave. I can't guarantee whether it's going to be tomorrow afternoon, evening, more like evening, or Sunday. If it's Sunday, it'll have to be like early afternoon. It won't be very long, but I will do one more because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to do anything while I'm in Washington. So stay tuned. There will be a labe. One more after this one. This one won't be a really long one, but I will get another one out to you guys. If you notice the streamer salary, we are almost to the stretch goal. Need another $71 to hit it. We got 23 hours to go. I guess if I do one on Sunday, then there's technically a little bit more than 23 hours. But so please, let me put the tip link in here. Appreciate all of the support from you guys. Got the polarized lenses on the Pit Vipers here, so I gotta cock my head like a goofball to see what I'm typing here. And tips.kingpill.com. There is the. Did I type it right? Yeah. There is the Streamlabs link. And reminder that you should join the King Pill Discord, kingpill.com. And also a shout out to, let me get the names here, Denise, and it was Denise on Venmo, and then Corey on Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you guys for your contributions. Corey said, "Thank you for doing all the research and organizing the pertinent information for the Labe listeners." You're very welcome, my friend. Thank you for helping pay my bills. And then let me get the message here from Denise. I believe she said something. And she said, "Kick screwed me tonight. I guess I'll have to replay Gang It tomorrow." Yeah, hopefully Kick doesn't keep doing its thing. I hope it stops acting up. seems like it's okay for tonight. We got 69 watching right now. Very, very nice. And I also want to say a big thank you to Mr. Butt Poop and Truck Lore, the Patriots, who have resubscribed on Kick. Thank you guys for that. To you, I will start us off with an Erica.
Auf der einen blüht ein kleines Blümelein und das heißt Erika.
And now, let us SUDAWAVE. We got a bonus SUDAWAVE this week. Trump 47, week 36 of 208, part 2. Keep this going, plus revolution. If you guys are looking at the, if you see the chat on the screen there, you can see Mr. Suda, Tour Elidar. I have no idea if that's how you actually pronounce it, but I'm doing my best. There in the chat, he's watching on X. Now we've got, same thing's happening to him that happened to me with the Labe. Now he's set his standards so high doing 20+ minute SUDAWAVEs that when he does a bonus one, it's as long as his original ones were. So, let's go. 8 minutes. Tuck in, boys. Now we SUDAWAVE.
Excuse me? What's sleep? Apparently, you're supposed to go to bed at nighttime. Usually, I sit in my room like this. Ha! Ha!
Heard you got deported, dude. Bye.
They simply stopped coming. They're not coming anymore. We're getting a lot of credit, but they're not coming anymore.
I'm gonna come.
Bye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
They did The Wizard of Oz here. This is where they shot The Wizard of Oz. And to shoot The Wizard of Oz, they needed midgets. They needed hundreds of midgets. So they scoured the land for midgets. They sent people out to every little fucking town in America to find midgets. And they brought all the midgets together. And they put them all in the Culver Hotel, which is up the road a little ways. And they put the midgets 3 to a bed in a room. Now these midgets were living by themselves, isolated from the world. They'd never met another midget. And suddenly, they're in a hotel full of other midgets of all sexes and sexual persuasions.
What's
and
happening?
What proceeded to happen was a giant midget orgy. It was midget mayhem for weeks. Midgets swinging from the chandeliers. There were midgets like passed out drunk in the urinals. It was just a giant midget party. But it's a beautiful thing because actually a lot of midgets met other midgets and got married and had midget families. There's actually a giant rainbow right in the middle of the Sony lot that you can see out there.
And thus were born the
And they
Krasensteins.
actually built that rainbow after the movie that was made about the giant midget orgy called Under the Rainbow. And what you see when you're driving all over Los Angeles is just lots of Illuminati propaganda and symbolism. And it's to remind you that they're in charge and you have no control of your own life.
Evan Dubois sent $20. Imagine the taste of Candace Owens chocolate.
Okay. All right, that's going to be the N-word.
When George Floyd got killed, there were billions of dollars in property damage done as a response, and dozens of people were killed, and hundreds at least were assaulted and, injured and things like that. There's a lot of violence in response to that. There's been none in response to Charlie Kirk.
I can confirm at this time that the FBI is investigating this incident as an act of targeted violence. It is unfortunately just the most recent example we've seen of targeted violence. To include here in North Texas, where back on July 4th, we saw a coordinated attack carried out against an immigration detention center in Alvarado, Texas. What I can also share with you is that early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature.
Your friend wouldn't celebrate you being murdered, of course. But if they would celebrate an exact clone of you that wasn't you, that had all the same opinions, or some of the opinions that you have, they would celebrate that clone being murdered, they're not your friend.
It needs to be proportional justice. It needs to be fair justice. There's a fair trial. It needs to be swift justice, not delayed. And if it's a public national crime, like the case of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, then that justice should be carried out publicly. What do I mean? I'll speak in no uncertain terms. I believe that Charlie Kirk's murderer should be put to death and that his execution should be publicly, nationally televised.
Base.
It's not the criticisms of me, it's the criticisms of the people on the ground who are just doing their job. They're trying to keep us safe, they're trying to enforce our border laws, and they are being treated by terrorists by the Democrats in leadership in Washington, D.C. It's disgraceful, but more than that, it is inciting violence against our police officers, against our ICE officers. It's just got to stop. They're going to get more people killed. They've already gotten people killed. It's got to stop.
We might call this getting strike ready. I think of it as getting us strike ready or street ready. And part of that is understanding our own strength, and as we develop that strength, being able to assess our risk tolerance, because we know that risk tolerance increases as the severity of the situation increases and as our own understanding of what's happening increases.
What's getting organic pickup that we can start to pull out and capitalize on, right? And so thinking about things that we're seeing pop on the internet, things that we're seeing start to like take off in places like Reddit. The color yellow and black have come up a lot, which is obviously very like, you know, kind of people taking pieces of the No Kings logo and running with it as a color scheme. We agree this is like a need, and what we really want to do is try to figure out like what's already starting to organically take off that we can collectively come in together on.
One challenge is settling on what that idea is that you want to push, and then you've got this period in between when you settled on the idea and when you actually make that a cultural phenomenon. And in the in-between period, what you need is a lot of people who say, screw it, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to be one of the first movers out there who's just, I'm all in yellow, or I've got my yellow bandana, or it's, whatever it is. And we're going to need a lot of people who do that.
What did Lenin's shock troops do?
Operational preparation of the environment. It's a military term to make it so that it's likely that the revolutionaries, when they attack, will be successful. Yeah. He does the separation stage. And then comes the messaging, where he gets everyone singing the same song, hearing the same message. Repetition, repetition, repetition. It's a form of almost mass formation hypnosis is the term that we like to use, where everyone just begins to believe peace, land, bread, peace, land, bread. We have moral authority. We're on the right side of history. We hear that term a lot. And then they begin to infiltrate.
All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. But she's in great shape.
We love our First Lady.
We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
It's quite shocking. As the verdict was read, it appeared to our producers inside the courtroom that Ruth tried to stab himself in the neck with a pen. That's what it appeared to look like.
Holy shit. Woo! Oh, that one was That one was well put together. That wasn't, sometimes the SUDAWAVEs are just like, they're like hype edits kind of, but that one sent a message. That was very well produced, sir. If you guys didn't necessarily track all of that, he just told a story with that. You got to go back and listen to that afterwards. I'll have the link to this in the King Pilled Substack. Go get that link, go share it, and go watch through it and note what each, like the core idea of each clip as they built on each other. That was actually very, very good. That was very appropriate for some of the stuff that I have prepared today. That fit in very, very well. Well done, sir. Another excellent SUDAWAVE. And while that was happening, a couple big things happened.
Even that shit up. Welcome to Max Talk at 0 RPM Flavor Country.
Oh, hell yeah. Max Torque at 0 RPM, baby. Oh, you just get pinned to the back of your seat. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Thank you, ER Hank. Patriot. And then another.
I will eat your ass. Your leftist ass like corn on the cob. 72 virgins for the Labians. Patriots. All of you.
Thank you, Mr. Sue. $72 for 72 virgins for the Labians. And now, I'm going to play you guys that entire song because I accidentally locked my wife outside and I got to go down and open the door for her. So, hold that thought. I will be right back. Enjoy some leftist ass eating.
I will eat your ass. Your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. My children aren't going hungry. I'll do it. I'll drink your blood. And I'm starting to think about having to eat my neighbors. You think I like sizing up? I'm gonna haul him up that chain. Chop his ass up, size it up. I'm gonna haul him up that chain. Chop, 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 chop. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. I'll barbecue your ass flat. I will cook your ass up so fast, and I'll tell them, well, I killed a cow out back, baby. You think Christ would eat somebody? He would never do that. I will. I'm ready to hang them up, gut them and skin them and chop them up. You know what? I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. That's why I want the globalists to know. I will eat your ass first. I swear to God, if it's the last thing I do, I'm gonna get my hands around your throat.
Adolph Jones over there. I haven't really been on, for obvious reasons, I haven't really been on Twitter to see all the things that have been happening over the last couple of days, but I did see the pictures of him with his head shaved and the Hitler stash, and I saw one tweet that had me laughing for like 20 miles. So imagine walking into a gas station in Austin and there's Alex Jones standing there with a Hitler mustache. It's just a simple sentence, but I started giggling and then I just kept thinking of it. I kept playing it over and over again in my head. Just the image, like imagine you walk into a gas station and you hear the voice, you're fucking globalists, and you look over there and there's Alex Jones, but it's not just Alex Jones. It's bald Alex Jones. And then he's turns around and looks at you, and he's got a Hitler mustache. I would be paralyzed. I would be laying on the ground in the fetal position, just crying, laughing. And then he says, I'll eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. Yeah. Oh, and then, of course, I'd have to throw up the Bellamy. Would have to. Be obligated. And I'll bet you he'd return it. Thank you guys for the tips, by the way, Mr. Sue and ER Hank. Pushed me over the stretch goal. You guys are incredible. Incredible. Nothing like the Labe audience, man. All right, so let's keep this going now. This clip is very interesting. I've seen some of the stuff people have been saying about Erica Kirk, and I don't have time for it. I'm not going to entertain some of these things. This clip, however, from Glenn Beck. If you're wondering how things might go moving forward, maybe we're getting a little bit of a peek here.
I was flying yesterday, and I thought, what are the odds that this amazing spiritual giant, who had been prepared, I think, his whole life to do what he did, is smart enough to run a large operation, has the spirit with him, knows how to argue, knows how to do everything he does, marries a woman who is exactly like that. I mean, she said to me last week, we had a conversation, she said, I think Charlie prepared me for this, and I didn't even know it. She said, he's got stacks of diaries. He wrote a diary every day. And she said, I never read his diaries. I mean, that's not something you do. But after he died, I went in and I started going through his diaries. I was reading the last few pages and everything else. She said, I started reading him. She said, he left me the plans for 2028. He left me the budgets for the future. She said, he left this for me. And she is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, TPUSA is in really good hands, I think, with her. But here she is in one of the most Christ-like moments yesterday at the memorial service, talking about the shooter of her husband.
Now, he's talking about Erica Kirk here. But can we just take a second to dwell on this? The absolute political machine, one-man political machine that was Charlie Kirk. With everything that he was doing, podcasts, flying around, debating people, political activism, organizing, communicating with members of Congress, advising the president, nonstop, running this gigantic organization with a 9-figure budget. And he was writing out all of his plans in a diary every single day. He has the budget written out, the plans for 2028, his insurance policy. When I said Charlie is the, I said Vance Kirk 2028, I was like, I'm kind of going out on a limb here. I hope saying this doesn't end up making me look kind of goofy. I felt like I was one of the few people in the room that was even giving him credence for being more than just kind of a meme. And I had not the foggiest idea just how excellent he was. I wildly underestimated him, even as I started taking him seriously. What an absolutely gigantic void that has been left. There is no single person who's going to fill that void. There is no single organization that's going to fill that void. It's going to take everyone to pick up the slack. And in a certain sense, it's almost... Charlie made himself anti-fragile. Because he laid the groundwork for Charlie the phenomenon, to be distributed. So he was immortalized, and now the Charlie effect can be distributed. Instead of having 100% of Charlie Kirk, imagine having 140% of Charlie Kirk. Or 1,020%. Or 1,000,000 10%. You get Charlie Kirk distributed across the entire nation. Yeah, Charlie is now a tactic. That's good. Trend Führer. Again, what a name. Trend Führer. Incredible. This other clip is one that's been going around. And I got a couple of reactions to it. I'm going to play it for you guys. It's a longer clip, but this, well, as Walter Whitepill here, Thad, he says, it will become increasingly evident that Charlie Kirk was completely plugged into the online right, but chose to publicly exhibit a calibrated amount of normie-friendly palatability designed for a mass movement plus mainstream appeal. The dividends from his work have yet to be seen. This is exactly it. This is bang on. And I happen to know some behind-the-scenes things I probably can't really talk about, but I happen to know some that just how plugged in he was. And I think this alone is something to learn from and internalize, not just for your own sake, but for understanding what effective political operation is. Right now, I did my big rant at the end of the last stream, and I've been hearing second, third hand about all of the dooming and blackpilling that's been happening. People demanding radical, drastic, transformative, super obvious action. And I think you got to realize that being an effective political operator is not always about everything that you're doing in public. In fact, the more radical you are, this is the John Doyle point he was making. The more radical you are, the more normal you need to act. The more palatable to the mainstream you need to be. And I think this goes for an individual. It also goes for an administration. I think that we've created a little echo chamber that has a lot of overlap with people like Charlie and people who are close to the administration. Obviously, the administration is listening to us. But we've also got to realize that we are a tiny, minute fraction of the population. The overwhelming majority of the population. I'm not talking like 80%. I'm saying like 99.5% of the population isn't anywhere close to where we are. They're just going along with their lives, oh yeah, it was really tragic that guy got shot, but like the boiling frog thing. They're still, the water might be boiling to us, but it just feels normal to them. And that's a real thing. That's a real thing to grapple with. That the administration still has to consider the electoral ramifications of anything that they do. That's not even getting into. We'll talk later about the many of the internal hurdles and stuff that they're dealing with, but I think everyone in our circles here are keenly aware that we're right on the cusp of like total breakdown in civil society and rampant violence in the streets. But the overwhelming majority of the normies are not aware. They don't know that that's where we're at. And this is not an easy situation to be in. It's hard to say this, it's hard to come to grips with this, but in order for the administration to appreciably continue escalating there has to be more violence. This tweet that I sent out yesterday morning kicked off a bunch of well, let's see. Actually, before I play this, let me just read this tweet because it'll kind of illustrate something I'm trying to say here. Right here. I said high-profile arrests are going to escalate the leftist violence, not tamp it down. Antifa crackdowns are going to escalate the leftist violence, not tamp it down. Mass firings are going to escalate the leftist violence, not tamp it down. The leftist violence is going to escalate. It was always going to. If you're demanding radical aggressive action from the administration, specifically to discourage more leftist violence, and note, I worded this very intentionally, and I realized that this tweet was half the replies to this tweet understood what I was saying. The other half revealed that they're simply illiterate. They're on like a base level, they're not capable of reading words put together into sentences and understanding what those words in that sentence mean. Like half the people who replied to this and said, "Oh, just do nothing then." No, I'm explicitly assuming high-profile arrests, Antifa crackdowns, mass firings. I didn't say they would escalate leftist violence. If I was counter-signaling those things, I would say, this is how words work, high-profile arrests would escalate the leftist violence. I said high-profile arrests are going to. And I said, if you're demanding radical aggressive action from the administration, specifically to discourage more leftist violence, you're months, if not years, behind the game. There's nothing they can do to prevent more leftist violence. There will be more leftist violence. If you wanted radical aggressive action from a presidential administration to prevent more leftist violence, that needed to happen at least 5 or 10 years ago. We're way beyond that now. There's no putting that toothpaste back in the tube. There is going to be more leftist violence. And that's bad. But it's also not all bad. And this is the sort of I think nuance that is really difficult for people to we're in a difficult time here. And everyone wants to go like stake out the most radical extreme position on things. But in order for the administration, the administration cannot unilaterally escalate. They have to escalate correspondingly, not in your eyes. They have to escalate correspondingly in the eyes of the general populace. Because the general populace is not conditioned to see, oh, there's domestic terrorists embedded all in throughout society, and this violence escalation track that they're on is going to get really rapidly out of hand. So if the administration came out and just clamped down really hard, they would be committing political suicide. And this is a real thing that you have to grapple with. This is leaving aside the question of whether it would even be organizationally feasible. And I've got some more stuff on that we'll talk about as we get further into the show. But leaving aside that question, just assume that they've got total and complete control of the executive branch. Everything is all, they've purged all the traitors. They're all like lockstep. One giant hive mind that knows exactly what time it is. If they came out with a gigantic show of force and crushed Antifa, They would lose the midterms. They would lose in 2028. Because they would scare the hoes on a level the hoes have never been scared before. And this isn't just like, oh, you can't do stuff because you're going to lose an election. What if they lose the election? Who are they losing that election to? They're losing that election to frickin' Gavin Newsom or something. Hakeem Jeffries. So they get a short-term win and sacrifice the long-term future of the country. Which means they don't actually prevent leftist violence. And this is also leaving aside, like, I'm playing in this little hypothetical sandbox because this is where so much of the commentary exists, in this fake little hypothetical sandbox that leaves out all these massive variables. Antifa is the tip of the iceberg. Antifa is the JV squad. Antifa is child's play. There are much, much darker forces at play that are affiliated with and behind Antifa, but are drastically worse. I told you guys, one of my sources, one of my connections, told me in June, it was either May or June, that on the street, the word was that Antifa and the cartels had set aside their differences and were beginning to coalition up because they had interests in common. That seems kind of obvious now, I think. I mean, I don't hear a lot of people talking that way, but I think it's kind of obvious now. It should be obvious to you at least. But it wasn't that obvious back then. Antifa is just one small element here. Politica Catholic says, I don't know. I don't think we lose an election ever again. We would have to make some catastrophic error to lose the midterms. Cracking down on literal terrorism that people are sick of, ain't it? That's the thing. You're sick of it. I'm sick of it. Most of the people in our immediate circle are sick of it. The vast majority of the population is just kind of like vaguely aware of it. But we've also been kind of in this like low intensity burn, and there's like this violent thing that happens over there, and there's this other violent thing that happens over here, and you cannot underestimate the normie's ability to just kind of adapt to existing circumstances when it's not immediately personally affecting them in that moment. And they've undergone decades and decades of conditioning that says the worst possible thing is not like terrorists roaming around inside the country bombing buildings. I mean, the Weather Underground stuff, they were literally bombing Congress. They were engaged in egregious acts of violent terrorism. Completely memory hold. There's probably like maybe 0.5% of the population who even knows what Weather Underground is. The population has been thoroughly inured against the idea that leftist terrorism is a real and present threat. What they have been completely indoctrinated into is that a authoritarian crackdown by the government, men in jackboots marching through the streets, familiar faces and names being arrested, that this is straight to 1984 is recommended reading by fucking Gavin Newsom. That's what people are afraid of. Now, before the marshmallow brained say, "Oh, just do nothing then?" Of course not. I'm saying this is a very real calculus that has to be considered, that has dramatic influence on the situation. And again, we've only barely expanded the sandbox to consider that. We haven't even gotten into the larger matter, the probably most existential matter, which is they don't have full operational control of every executive branch agency or federal law enforcement agency in the country. Not even close. Those agencies have been being subverted for decades. In no world ever would they have been able to fully bring them to heel in the space of 8 months. I've got more thoughts that I want to say, but they're tied into other things that I know that are coming, so I'm going to keep this going. You can go read the rest of this tweet if you want. I'll leave it linked in here. It's just kind of repeating some of the stuff that I said on the last show. But here is how Charlie talked to boomers. Very good lessons to learn from the way that he communicated with these normies. Communicated pretty radical ideas to normies.
You're living through a moment where this is the most consequential historical climax, like, since the American Civil War. That's not BS, that's not spin. Yeah, this is even, this is, I mean, like 1776 Tea Party. Yeah. Yeah, and it's a question, right? And I have no idea if we're going to win or not.
Obviously, this is before the election. Spudarka says, why are right-wing influencers not educating conservatives about these realities instead of clickbait slop posting? This is a lack of awareness that shouldn't exist at this point. That's a very good question. That is a very good question. We've got this rather substantial ecosystem of guys who are super plugged in, super tapped in on all of this, who could be focusing their efforts, if they're going to be in the raising awareness business, they could be focusing their efforts on getting the normies up to speed on all of this. Doing whatever they need to get in front of the right people. To fully, bring the normies up to speed. Lay down cover fire for the administration. Prepare the way. Be the propagandists so that the administration can do the things that they very clearly want to do. Why is that not happening? Why do I feel like I'm one of a small handful of voices talking about this? And I've got a very niche audience. My audience is small and it's very niche. The whole nature of the show and everything doesn't lend itself to mass consumption by normies. But there are those whose shows do. And I want to see this sort of rhetoric being directed toward the normies, rather than all of this energy being sent at the administration, just demanding that they do things that they clearly are not capable of doing at this point in time, or not capable of doing as fast as it's being demanded, particularly when it would not be politically prudent to do it as fast as they're demanding.
You have a thought?
Why don't we go on the offense?
We're trying, man. That's a good question.
I like what you're the only one that I see.
Well, it's because thank you, and I'm not the only one. But let me tell you why. By the grace of God, I am not in federal prison. By the grace of God, I'm not indicted. That's not a joke. That's what these people do. Okay. Well, look, you're right, and I pray for me every day and pray, and you should, because there's only a few of us that actually play offense. James O'Keefe plays offense.
Yes.
But what happened to him?
What happened? Right.
Yeah.
They removed him from his organization. He's under criminal investigation by the FBI and the Westchester DA. Steve Bannon plays offense. He's going to go to federal prison next month. Tucker Carlson plays offense. They took him off air. Any player that plays, Donald Trump plays offense. He's facing 600 years in federal prison. That's why we don't play offense. How about this? We have 16 literally amazing senior citizens that have done such good for our country in Michigan that are facing the rest of their life in prison because they signed a document to become an alternate elector. To become an alternate elector. Most people don't even know about this story. This story was buried. I'm going to talk about this tonight. These are 16 senior citizens. I'll tell you about Rose Rook, 81 years old, from Paw Paw, Michigan. She signed a piece of paper to become an alternate elector, her constitutional right with historical precedent. She's facing 120 years in federal prison. 81 years old, she has $30,000 to her name, and her husband died 10 years ago. And the Michigan AG is trying to show her as a domestic terrorist. She can't defend herself. The whole weight of the world is, the cruelty is the point. We are dealing with savages. This is not normal. This is ultra-revolution time. Like, they are eating the country from within. The problem is they preempt us against offense, but that is not an excuse. We all have to play offense. We have to take the initiative. But here's the thing, we are not good offensive players. I'll prove it to you.
That's absolutely
Because conservatives definitionally are defensive. We are conserving against their offense, right? So like by our temperament is to build businesses and churches and be agreeable. Our temperament, we don't think like revolutionaries. Well, we got to change that. I know, but my next book is literally called Right-Wing Revolution. Like, I'm trying to make people think in a way where we're trying to stop their refounding of America. Here's the good news. If you want like the good news of all this, the founders have given us this unbelievable opportunity. The fact that we still have some semblance of a constitution gives us hope. Like, if we did not have the founders, God bless them. Like, I'll give you an example, the Electoral College. If it was not for the Electoral College, this is game, set, match, we're done. Now we have a chance, right? A collection of states. It's still going to be very hard, right? But there's still hope, is what I'm saying. There's a roadmap. The founders saw this. They were like, we're going to make it really hard, not impossible, really hard to destroy this place, right? They put so many checks and balances in that think about how much we've survived, right? The fact that we still have fight, and honestly, it's a gift from Madison, Hamilton, and Jay of how they saw this, right? Like I tell people, the North Star is our founding fathers. The North Star is our own documents. The North Star is the Declaration of the Constitution. Like, that's what we're trying to get back to. We're trying to defend that. I want to win. No, but I want to win. But why do you think we will win?
I believe in the spirit of the human, just the humanness of that. We will step up when we have to step
So
up.
this is so interesting. I totally disagree because, and let me tell you, I got in a debate with an atheist. So he and it ties to this. Like, he said, okay, Charlie, I can't believe in God after the Holocaust.
He's so good at disagreeing cordially. He's so good at saying you're wrong and having people say, thank you for telling me that I'm wrong.
And I said, I can't believe in humanity after the Holocaust.
Yeah.
I said, I still believe in God. I've lost all faith in humans. So I want you to think about that, right? I have zero faith in humanity.
But look what humans did to Christ.
Yes, I mean, they didn't stop Mao, they didn't stop Hitler, they didn't stop Mussolini, they didn't stop, I'm not saying, you might be right. Now you're, but I am too, but I don't do hopium, right? I don't do hope and opium feels good, it's really bad for you. I'm right in the middle. I'm like, we could win triumphantly, or this could get really bad. And I'm just being honest. Like, I don't think what I'm getting at, and I'm not trying to, we're having fun, right? I don't think our victory is inevitable. I don't.
We'll have to work for it. Really hard.
Yeah, and rededicate everything. And by the way, that last paragraph of the Declaration, I think, just rings in our soul. Our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. That's everything, right? And we are not at a place where Americans are willing to do that, right?
Yes, we are.
No, we're not. Well, you are, but it takes 3 to 5%. If you get to 3 to 5%, you could save the country. So that's the good question, right? Are we there? I'm not being pessimistic. I'm being real, right?
But what's the method?
What is
that's what's missing. I watch shows and books, and what's the
all of the above. All the above. You have to, first and foremost, Politics is a vector, right? California's in a different spot. I'll be honest. The all-out, like weak-kneed, spineless red states, you would, if you came in and you did not know the composition of this country, you would think Democrats control like every governor's mansion, every AG. What is the method? The method is Oklahoma, Kansas, South Dakota, South Carolina, Arkansas start acting the way the blue states act. I've said this publicly, I'll say it again. We need Republican AGs indicting every major Democrat across the board. We need DAs starting to indict. That's not going to happen because they don't want it bad enough. They're a bunch of Mike Pences. This is what gives me hope, though. What gives me hope is that the actual rank and file of the Republican base is like on fire, energized. Like, I can't stay ahead of my audience. Like, I do this for 3 hours a day, and they're better researched than I am, and I do this for like 18 hours. Like, they're sending me articles of like WHO treaties and like, did you know about like him repealing, Obama repealing the propaganda? It is the most informed audience I've ever dealt with. That's like a massive shot in the arm of optimism, right? That shows that good things are happening. What drives me nuts, and we got to change it, is our leaders are so disconnected from the voters. And California is its own thing. Let's just talk about the 10 reddest states in the country, right? South and North Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, forget Texas, like Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi. Like, we should be waging all-out war against the left on these states. And we're not. Like, we're kind of like, well, I hope it gets better.
And you know what? Waging all-out war against the left in those states is not something that's done by the federal government. The federal government should not be the ones who are responsible for doing that, particularly right now, given all the other shit that they're doing. If you want that playbook, the way that playbook happens is local organization. People getting active in their local cities and states. And you might say, oh, we don't have time for that. Yeah, that's what people said 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Oh, no, it's too late. It's too far gone. No, we need solutions now. There are no solutions now. There is only building. Picking yourself up by the nutsack, gritting your teeth, and building. Yeah, he used Pence as a slur. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that Chuck Dirk? I mean, I think we kind of knew. But who would have thought that Chuck Dirk would see Pence as a curse word? There was the chat got away from me. Oh yeah, here it is. Trent Ferrer said, I've used this show to truce pill wignats and stop their black pill addiction. That's the pipeline. Sir, you're a patriot. I'm glad to hear that. We're going to keep it going. We're going to keep it going because we got to truce pill the wignats. There's a lot of power that could be had there if they get their heads on straight. We need more Charlie Kirks. We need so many more Charlie Kirks. So here's Blake Neff. He says, when I told Charlie Nebraska's law splitting its electoral votes might cost Trump 2024, he organized a rally in Omaha to push winner take all within a week. We almost got it done too, and trust me, we haven't forgotten about it. Charlie always thought big in politics, and he always wanted to be on the attack. He cared about debating issues, sure, but he was always asking me to find more concrete things conservative office holders could do right now to put wins on the board. And the ideas I gave him, he started to push right away. I helped Charlie with his 2024 book, Right Wing Revolution. The middle of the book was full of things Republicans could do at the local, state, and federal level to get concrete wins on the board. If you look at the Trump admin's first days, you'll see a lot of its ideas. Right Wing Revolution, link right here to the Amazon book. Right Wing Revolution, How to Beat the Woke and Save the West. Looks like there's a hardcover version. I think I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy it, whatever copy that I can, and start going through it. This is the stuff here. Yelling and screaming at the administration to go faster. is not a good, productive use of time. All of that time and energy can be invested in local organizing, strategizing. Take all of that autism and dedicate it. Pick one of these ideas. Get a group of your guys, a group chat. Pick one of these ideas and start game planning it out. Run through all of your local network. You know, anybody with money, anybody with connections, anybody with time that can start working on this. It has to happen at the local and state levels. That's where you get the support to allow the administration to do more and more dramatic things, because more and more of the country is locked down and secured by their people. Tucker Carlson tells the story of how Blake Neff got doxxed and fired from Fox News, and Charlie Kirk gave me a second chance. This is Blake Neff writing. Until now, I've never tweeted, but Charlie is gone now. It's my duty to help people remember him. So we're going to do a little veer off down this rabbit hole for a minute. I'm going to play this video, and then I'm going to read you guys the story of what happened with Blake Neff. It's very entertaining. And then we'll come back to some of this conversation. We'll talk about the Joint Terrorism Task Force here in just a minute. So here is Tucker Carlson on the Charlie Kirk Show telling the story of Blake Neff.
Oh, this is a Blake Neff story. Okay, so this is a story that obviously I was in the middle of it, and I've talked to a lot of people just this week about it. I don't think it's ever been told in public. I'm going to give the outline and then just turn it over to Blake to correct me and to fill in the details. But here's the story. So Blake worked for me at Fox News for years, probably more closely than anybody, like intimately at Fox, and I love Blake. And Blake is obviously an unusual person, but just a wonderful person and a really deeply decent person.
I mean, it's true.
And obviously, yeah, but Blake's weird, but like Blake is the best. And people who love Blake really love Blake. And there's a little group of people who, you know, we all know each other. We all talk about Blake. So Blake got caught up right at the height of all this insanity, true insanity called cancel culture. But it was more than that. It was like French Revolution stuff. And someone like, you know, Blake is naughty. Blake is a racist. Well, actually, is that what I always say? Blake is actually not a racist. And I would admit it. He's not. He's a Christian who believes that God created everybody. So he's actually not a racist. But Fox overreacted, of course, and he left. And then Fox denounced him. They tried to get me to denounce him. Suzanne Scott tried to make me denounce Blake, and I refused. Something I'm proud of. But whatever. It was just awful. It was the saddest moment in the 15 years that I spent there. And then Blake's unemployed. And unemployable. And I get this, and I feel terrible, and I feel like I've got a moral obligation to help Blake. But who's going to hire Blake? Because he's like, in the New York Times, he's like a bad person, when actually he's a great person. Charlie Kirk calls me. He's like, I'm thinking about hiring Blake. I was like, God bless you, Charlie. What's he like? I said, well, Blake's very eccentric, like, no kidding. He's the only person who ever lost weight eating junk food. Like, he's a really unusual person. Like, we talk about Blake all day long. But he's a wonderful person, and he's incredibly talented. No one disputes that, and I think you should do it. He does. Charlie and I talk about it. Then Blake and I talk about it. We're having these like conversations behind the scenes about each other. And not only does Charlie hire Blake, he puts us, it makes me emotional, he puts Blake on the air as if to say, I know this man. He is a good man. You will judge me for doing this. I'm doing it anyway because it's the right thing to do. And then, of course, it becomes this whole thing where Blake is like a true asset to him. But when he first did it, it was like, no, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. This is the last thing I'll say before turning over to Blake. I've been in this business my whole life. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. Everyone's like, oh, I'm for free speech or whatever, until it hurts me, at which point, like, sorry, pal, good luck. But Charlie pivoted against that in a way that exposed him and his group, Turning Point, to ridicule and risk, and he did it anyway. And all week I've been talking to people about this, like, that was the acid test. Those of us in this business know how brave that was. It was the bravest thing.
I'm wondering if, see the, who was it? Jukebox Wizard said, is that the woman with the Troon son? Suzanne Scott. I'm wondering if it is. That would totally make sense. It would very much make sense, but I couldn't find anything on it immediately. Let me just ask Grok here real quick. Sorry, I'm getting distracted, but this is going to be, this is going to stick in my head. Have a trans child. Yes, Suzanne Scott, the CEO of Fox News Media, has a transgender child. That is the one. Very interesting. Okay, so I had no idea that Charlie had hired Blake Neff. I barely knew who Blake Neff was. I remember when this happened. When it was Tucker, one of Tucker's. I knew like Tucker had a producer, and he was kind of like one of our guys, and he was in our circles, and this is kind of where some of Tucker's talking points were coming from, and so I was sort of like vaguely aware of it, but I didn't really know much about him. And then I saw this video, and so I did a little searching and found this article about it. This is from CNN. This was in, July 11, 2020. It's a little over 5 years ago. The top writer for Fox News host Tucker Carlson has for years been using a pseudonym to post bigoted remarks on an online forum that is a hotbed for racist, sexist, and other offensive content, CNN Business learned this week. Just this week, the writer Blake Neff responded to a thread started by another user in 2018 with the subject line, "Would you let a jet black Congo nigger do LASIK eye surgery on you for 50% off?" Neff wrote, "I wouldn't get LASIK from an Asian for free, so no." The subject line was not censored on the forum. On June 5, Neff wrote, "Black dudes staying inside playing Call of Duty is probably one of the biggest factors keeping crime down." On June 24, Neff commented, "Honestly, given how tired black people always claim to be, maybe the real crisis is their lack of sleep." On June 26, Neff wrote that the only people who care about changing the name of the NFL's Washington Redskins are, quote, "white libs and their university-educated pets." And over the course of 5 years, Neff has maintained a lengthy thread in which he has derided a woman and posted information about her dating life that has invited other users to mock her and invade her privacy. There has at times also been overlap between some material he posted or saw on the forum and Carlson's show. CNN Business contacted Neff for comment Thursday night after he or someone acting on his behalf passed that email to Fox News spokespeople. A network spokesperson on Friday morning told CNN Business that Neff had resigned. Carlson and Neff did not respond requests for comment. In a memo sent to employees Saturday afternoon after the story was first published, Fox News CEO Suzanne Scott and President Jay Wallace condemned, quote, "horrific, racist, misogynistic, and homophobic behavior." Neff's abhorrent conduct on this forum was never divulged to the show or the network until Friday, at which point we swiftly accepted his resignation. Make no mistake, actions such as his cannot and will not be tolerated at any time in any part of our workforce. Neff worked at Fox News for nearly 4 years and was Carlson's top writer. Previously, he was a reporter at the Daily Caller, a conservative news outlet that Carlson co-founded. In a recent article in the Dartmouth Alumni Magazine, Neff said, "Anything Carlson is reading off the teleprompter, the first draft was written by me." He also acknowledged the show's influence, telling the magazine, quote, "We're very aware that we do have that power to sway the conversation, so we try to use it responsibly." When asked in a 2018 appearance on Fox's The Five about the writing process for his show, Carlson said that he spends hours working on scripts, but referred to Neff by name, saying he was a, quote, "wonderful writer," and acknowledging his assistance. And Carlson credited Neff in the acknowledgments of his book, Ship of Fools, for providing research. In the acknowledgments, Carlson said that Neff and two others who helped with the book, quote, "work on and greatly improve our nightly show on Fox." Very highly rated show. Trump has tweeted stuff from it, which is to say the scripts that Neff likely helped write and shape were being shared by the President of the United States. While working at Fox News and while a reporter at the Daily Caller, Neff was a frequent poster on AutoAdmit, also known as XOXOHTH. It is a relatively unmoderated message board like 4chan aimed at lawyers and law school students in which racism and sexism run rampant. The board's vulgar content was previously the subject of much criticism, and 2 Yale students sued anonymous posters on the site in 2007, alleging they had defamed them and made threatening remarks. The lawsuit was quietly settled after some of the posters were identified. Neff, who posts on the board under the username Charles the 12th, that's Charles XII, 12 in Roman numerals, is widely revered on the forum, with many posters knowing the person behind the account works on Carlson's show. He has spent years posting about history, offering his political opinions, and detailing aspects of his personal life. After learning of Neff's post on the board through an email from an anonymous tipster, CNN Business was able to positively identify Charles the 12th as Neff by reviewing messages he has posted throughout the years on the forum and matching them up with publicly available information about him. They just go through the connections that they made. to identify him. Charles XII also wrote a parody version of the song We Didn't Start the Fire and posted about it on the board, including a screenshot of an email he received from Carlson praising a lyric in the song. Neff sang the parody song at a Daily Caller Christmas party a few years ago, according to a person familiar with the event. He dropped a number of Easter eggs for the board, including referencing an alcohol is poison meme that he repeatedly posted about and carrying a book on Catherine the Great to a date. His username on the forum is a reference to Charles XII of Sweden, a king known for his military victories and who abstained from sex and alcohol. Neff, a history buff interested in wars and military battles, has repeatedly disclosed in the forum that he rarely drinks, and the post story said he rarely dates. More identifying things, stuff about Tucker, hot water that Tucker's gotten into. Okay, in 2015, Neff started a thread on AutoAdmit mocking a woman with whom he was friends on Facebook and whom he described as an Asian mega shrew, sharing posts she had written about her dating life. He's continued to post to the thread and mock the woman, who CNN Business is not identifying, as recently as late last month. In his first post on 2015, starting the years-long thread, he explained that through circumstances he couldn't quite recall, he became Facebook friends with the woman and thought her posts about dating were amusing. So I thought I'd post them, Neff wrote. I won't put up a pic, but it's probably relevant to say she's a slightly overweight Asian woman who's in her mid-30s and definitely looks it. Through the years, the thread has generated nearly 1,000 comments, many of which use vulgar, racist, sexist, and dehumanizing language to mock the woman. Neff also said he did not want other posters to harass her, but did not stop them from identifying her and posting links to her account. He's also posted some photos from her account that did not show her face and continued posting about her dating life for years after the other posters had identified her. She issued a statement about it. In March 2020, Neff started another lengthy thread mocking a separate woman with whom he was connected on social media. The woman had posted about freezing her eggs, and Neff apparently found that worth deriding in the AutoAdmit forum. He began posting about her in March of this year in a thread he titled, Disaster! Wu flu outbreak endangers aging shrew's quest to freeze eggs. Neff posted to the thread, which racked up dozens of comments as users ridicule the woman as recently as June 28. On the forum, Neff has also expressed bigoted views. In 2014, he joked about foodie faggots. And in the same year, he started a thread titled Urban Business Idea. He didn't do muffin. He joked one item could be Sandra Bland's sugar-free shortbreads. In August of 2019, a user started a thread titled, We should just buy Canada and kick the Canadians out. Neff commented, okay, but what do we do with the millions of Chinese people? More recently, in February of 2020, Neff called Mormonism, quote, an inherently cucky religion. On June 5, a user on the forum commented on a thread, didn't Michael Brown rob a store and attack a police officer? And wasn't George Floyd a piece of shit with a long criminal record? JFC libs. Another person commented, it doesn't matter to these people. Neff then replied, it does. The violent criminals are even more heroic. On June 16, a user started a separate thread about a video showing a black man assaulting an elderly white woman in New York. Neff commented on the thread, quote, and to think, if this guy got killed in some freak accident while being arrested, we'd have to endure at least 3 funerals in his honor. On the 4th of July, Neff started a thread in which he jokingly raided members of the community using images from a 1990s video game for the makers of Oregon Trail that was pulled from the market due to its racist depictions of slaves. In the game, users play as slaves trying to break free and escape north. Neff assigned users on the forum images from the game, many of which depicted black slaves using racist stereotypes. For instance, Neff assigned one user an image of a slave catcher, to which the user replied, thank you, Master Charles, for this. On May 27, Neff wrote that reps Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib, known collectively as the Squad, want to, quote, all caps, make your country a dumping ground for people from third world shitholes. Responding to a thread on June 27 about whether, quote, whites fear what's going to happen to them in 10 to 20 years, Neff wrote that he has, quote, no plans to stay in the country that long. In December of 2019, he said that, quote, once Democrats have the majorities to go full fuck whitey, things are going to get really wacky really quickly. He argued at the time that there is a, quote, large minority of whites who are fully supportive of the fuck whitey agenda, and that, quote, there's a suicidal impulse to Western peoples that honestly feels almost biological in origin. Well, when not making his own bigoted comments, Neff has shown a willingness to respond to others who were without expressing any hesitation, much less disgust about what they've said. Can you believe it? Can you believe that he did not express disgust at their bigoted posts. For instance, in 2016, he replied to a thread with the title, Mary Poppins getting R-worded by a pack of wild niggers at the park. Kids watching. He replied to that thread with that title. It doesn't say what he said. He just replied to that thread. That same year, he commented on a thread titled, Dykes get wrong cum at Cumbank, nigger pops out. What the hell is this? Is this forum? Again, it doesn't say what he said. It just says that he commented on a thread that had that title. Just last month, Neff replied to a comment on the thread that said, quote, and the ends, I wonder what that's supposed to be. N blank blank S. It's been fully spelling out. Yeah, it's been fully spelling them out the other times it does it. I wonder what that's supposed to be. And the ends are always honor students or some bullshit. Oh, NIGs. Yeah, probably NIGs. Yeah. Good call, Omega Gamma. Last month, Neff mocked a user who said they were leaving the board over concerns about the rampant racism on it. In a now deleted comment, the user implored others to consider the current environment, writing, the country is undergoing a great awakening to racist injustices throughout the society. Maybe it should blah, 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 blah. On June 16, Neff responded by quoting the user's words and adding, LMAO, if you think this shit will save you when the mob comes for you, good riddance. The language notably echoed Carlson's comment 8 days before when he had said, remember that when they come for you. In February 2018, a user on AutoAdmit posted, at some point in the future, all your XO posts with IRL name will be public record. One person commented, I stand by every post. Neff upvoted that comment. Let's see here. So then there's like some connections of stuff that he said and stuff that Carlson said. Neff's caution since then may have resulted in fewer Easter eggs being slipped into Carlson's scripts, but there's still been at least some overlap between the forum and the show, including in recent weeks. Another connection here. He wrote on the forum, interest in real estate in Bozeman, Missoula, and the Flathead Valley has been on the rise for years. That night in his monologue, Carlson said, you're starting to consider maybe moving to Bozeman, and why wouldn't you? In some cases, language Neff used on the forum ended up on the show. The night of June 15, in commenting on a football coach who was the subject of controversy over a sweatshirt he'd worn, Neff wrote on the forum, it is your fucking right as an American to wear whatever t-shirt you want and hold whatever political views you want. Christ. The next night on his show, Carlson said, and they can wear whatever shirts they want. You thought that was true. You thought that was your right as an American. And then he broke some news that was announced on Carlson's show. So this is the guy who was the producer for Tucker Carlson, was forced to resign, and then Charlie Kirk hired him and put him on the air. I had no idea about this. I'd never known about this. I'd been vaguely aware of him back in 2020 when this happened. I knew that there was people talking about, Tucker has producers who are our guys who are plugged into our world, and Charlie hired him. Okay, so back to news events here. Oathman says, in the last 36 hours, several left-wing FBI agents were fired for their BLM kneel. You guys hear about that? FBI agents fired for kneeling at the one of the George Floyd memorials. The Joint Terrorism Task Force feds were unleashed on Antifa. 2 Democrats were indicted for doxing an ICE agent, and Comey was indicted. Be patient. And here was perhaps the big news yesterday. I'm sure you guys have already heard about this, but here's the actual announcement of it. POTUS signs a national security presidential memorandum establishing a comprehensive strategy to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle all stages of organized political violence and domestic terrorism.
Lastly, sir, this is a presidential memorandum on countering domestic terrorism and organized political violence. In recent weeks, months, and years, we've seen a tremendous upsurge in some highly visible but also other acts of domestic terrorism and organized political violence being perpetrated by radical, politically motivated groups all over the country. What this presidential memorandum will do is set off an administration-wide response to that, ranging from the Joint Terrorism Task Forces to other components of the Department of Justice, to the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Treasury. We're looking at interdicting these groups, preventing them from performing acts of violence, and also looking at sources of organization and funding and support that prop them up and allow them to do the acts that they have been doing.
We're looking at the funders of a lot of these groups, and you know, when you see the signs, and they're all beautiful signs made professionally, these aren't your protesters that make the sign in their basement late in the evening because they really believe it. These are anarchists and agitators, professional anarchists and agitators, and they get hired by wealthy people, some of whom I know, I guess. You know, I probably know them.
Isn't that an interesting comment? They get hired by wealthy people, some of whom I know, I guess. So he knows there's specific names that they're already investigating. They're already targeting. I know he mentioned Reid Hoffman, which is good news. But I kind of don't think that he would be saying that about just Reid Hoffman. These are some of these little Easter eggs that you get every now and then. That he's very good at just kind of playing it straight when behind the scenes things are much further progressed than they actually are. And he does I'm just the executive. I've got my people who are working on this. They report back to me every now and then. But he knows much more than he's letting on. And here he says, we're going after the people who are funding them. Some of whom I even know, I guess.
And you wouldn't know it. You're at dinner with them, everything's nice, and then you find out that they funded millions of dollars to these lunatics.
And that's really like, if you can cut off the flows of money, that's what, because I'm telling you, these Antifa people are literally being paid salaries. They have an organizational structure. They have different roles. Medic gets one salary. They have like a manager level, kind of like a lead organizer. They get paid. They're getting paid anywhere from like $4,000 to $10,000 a month. They're just straight up being paid salaries to go out and riot, and they get word. They've got communications networks. They find out there's going to be a raid at a particular building. They get organized. They head over there. These aren't just like random riots that people are just showing up for. They're literally being paid to be there, to go harass, attack the ICE agents or the cops or whomever it is. If you cut off that funding, a huge number of those people suddenly lose a lot of their incentive to be there. Now, obviously, many of them are true believers. That's what makes them good targets, makes them, happy to go work that job. But there's a lot of them that if they weren't getting paid to do it, they wouldn't be there. They may still believe the same things. They may support other people who are doing it. But you cut off the funding to them, and you get rid of a significant portion of them, which is important because if you're dealing with limited personnel issues, for every single person that has to be arrested, it requires probably, half a dozen cops just to be in and around and detain them and transport them. And so if there are, if there's, say you had 1,000 Antifa members in a given place, you would need probably 5,000 or 6,000 dedicated law enforcement personnel just for those 1,000 people. Not getting into all the investigations and all of the support efforts, just to physically go out and find them and detain them. And, Stephen Miller says, this NSPM is the first ever comprehensive national counterterrorism strategy to uproot the domestic terrorism networks on our soil. And if Stephen Miller's saying this, that this is the first ever comprehensive national counterterrorism strategy to uproot the domestic terrorism networks on our soil, then I'm guessing that's probably a factually accurate statement. And here is the Giga Jew himself talking about it.
This is a very historic and significant day. This is the first time in American history that there is an all-of-government effort to dismantle left-wing terrorism, to dismantle Antifa, to dismantle the organizations that have been carrying out these acts of political violence and terrorism. What we have seen, if you look at whether it be going back to the riots that started with Black Lives Matter and all the way through to the Antifa riots, the attacks on ICE officers, the doxing campaigns, and now the political assassinations, these are not lone, isolated events. This is part of an organized campaign of radical left terrorism. It is structured, it is sophisticated, it is well-funded, it is well-planned. There is really no parallel like this to anything else in the country right now. There is an entire system of feeder organizations that provide money, resources, weapons, and when they're attacking ICE officers, they're attacking federal buildings, or they're isolating public officials for harassment, doxing, intimidation, and ultimately attempted assassination. It is all carefully planned, executed, and thought through. It is terrorism on our soil. Because of this executive order, Cash and Pam are going to have the tools they need, working with Scott, to take these organizations apart piece by piece. And the central hub of that effort is going to be the Joint Terrorism Task Force, or JTTF, which sits inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But for those at home who are worried about terrorism in this country, they need to understand, because of President Trump's strength, because of his vision, because of his leadership, we are now going to use the entire force of the federal government to uproot these organizations root and branch. And again, that's only possible because of President Trump and his leadership.
Okay, so just to clarify exactly what I saw, a few people who were having conversations about like what exactly a joint terrorism task force is, what it's able to do, what it's not able to do, and so I asked Grok, I said, what powers does the JTTF have that regular state or federal law enforcement do not? And it said they're multi-agency collaborations led by the FBI involving federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial law enforcement partners. Established starting in 1980, they focus on investigating, preventing, and responding to terrorism threats, both domestic and international. As of 2024, there are approximately 4,000 members across 200-plus JTTFs nationwide, coordinated through the National Joint Terrorism Task Force at FBI headquarters. They emphasize integrated operations where participants work as a unified team, pooling resources like investigators, analysts, linguists, and tactical experts. They do not possess entirely new legal powers beyond those of their member agencies, but their structure enables unique operational capabilities through enhanced collaboration, federal oversight, and streamlined access to tools. These stem from FBI leadership, which grants JTTF members, including state and local officers, temporary federal deputization-like authority during operations. So here's some of the key differences, or key points. For information sharing and intelligence access, the JTTF has full real-time access to classified federal intelligence, e.g. NSA databases for international communications without individual warrants in counterterrorism contexts, and nationwide leads via NJTTF, enables querying bulk data during investigations. So it streamlines and accelerates the process of doing some of these investigations. They don't take as long because they can you can get like streamlined access between maybe a local agency and NSA databases, and they don't have to go request by request. They can query a gigantic bunch of data and get it all at once, which means smaller teams can wield outsized effect. They operate across federal, state, and local boundaries seamlessly. State and local officers gain federal authority for terrorism cases by bypassing typical jurisdictional hurdles. That's kind of the obvious part. They can open assessments or preliminary inquiries on potential threats with minimal factual basis under relaxed FBI guidelines focused on terrorism prevention. So there's like a lower standard, a lower legal basis for them to basically open a case. Draws from 50-plus federal agencies, e.g. DHS and ATF, and 500-plus state and local ones for specialized skills, e.g. linguists for foreign threats and tactical teams. Provides one-stop shopping for investigations. Now, this is a big one here. Enhanced tools for monitoring suspicious activity reports, SARs, via the nationwide SAR initiative, including patterns across regions, can infiltrate groups, e.g. protests, under federal counterterrorism rules. So surveillance and monitoring here is a big one. If they're trying to embed operatives within these organizations and monitoring them across jurisdictions, and then querying like large amounts of data to try to track all of the flows and everything, that's what the JTTF would be for. And then coordinates nationally via NJTTF for multi-state or international plots, disrupts networks by linking local leads to global intel, e.g. foreign terrorist tracking. So JTTFs extend FBI capabilities by embedding local knowledge and manpower, enabling faster threat response. Standalone FBI ops might miss nuanced local intel, while JTTFs create a force multiplier for prevention. In summary, JTTF's powers are more about amplified effectiveness through unity than standalone authority. I had a bit of speculation that I was trying to chase down, and it wasn't worth going into because there was nothing there. But that was I thought that was interesting. So here is the actual National Security Presidential Memorandum. This is NSPM 7. And let's look through some of the details here because there's some important stuff mentioned in this, particularly in the legal and rhetorical framing that they're using for this. So, by the authority invested in me as president by the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, I hereby direct the following. Heinous assassinations and other acts of political violence in the United States have dramatically increased in recent years. Even in the aftermath of the horrifying assassination of Charlie Kirk, some individuals who adhered to the alleged shooter's ideology embraced and cheered this evil murder while actively encouraging more political violence. This was preceded by the 2024 assassination of a senior healthcare executive. That would be the Luigi Mangione shooting. And the 2022 assassination attempt against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Two separate assassination attempts against my own life in less than 3 months took place during the 2024 presidential election cycle. Riots in Los Angeles and Portland reflect a more than 1,000% increase in attacks on ICE officers since January 21, 2025, compared to the same period last year. Just yesterday, a shooting targeting an ICE facility in Dallas resulted in multiple casualties. Separate anti-police and criminal justice riots, criminal justice in quotes, have left many people dead and injured and inflicted over $2 billion in property damage nationwide. So they're tracing a line through the Brett Kavanaugh assassination attempt, the Luigi Mangione, the attacks on ICE officers, and the assassination attempts on Trump, and then Charlie Kirk. So they're building out this case, tying all of these together. This political violence is not a series of isolated incidents and does not emerge organically. Instead, it is a culmination of sophisticated, organized campaigns of targeted intimidation, radicalization, threats, and violence designed to silence opposing speech, limit political activity, change or direct policy outcomes, and prevent the functioning of a democratic society. A new law enforcement strategy that investigates all participants in these criminal and terroristic conspiracies, including the organized structures, networks, entities, organizations, funding sources, and predicate actions behind them, is required. So a new law enforcement strategy is required. What does that strategy do? It investigates all participants in these criminal and terroristic conspiracies. There's a creation of a legal pretext happening here. They're putting together the case. They're identifying how this is not just random violence, but these are actually coordinated and organized specifically toward legal or political ends, to silence speech, limit political activity, change or direct policy outcomes, and prevent the functioning of a democratic society, which is definitionally terroristic. Some of this stuff is going to become relevant when it comes to actually prosecuting these cases down the line and being able to prosecute people for terrorism or supporting terrorism. These campaigns often begin by isolating and dehumanizing specific targets to justify murder or other violent action against them. They do so through a variety of fora. This is obviously written by Stephen Miller. Motherfucker said fora, including anonymous chat forums, in-person meetings, social media, and even educational institutions. These campaigns then escalate to organized doxing, where the private or identifying information of their targets, such as home addresses, phone numbers, or other personal information, is exposed to the public with the explicit intent of encouraging others to harass, intimidate, or violently assault them. As in the case of several ICE agents in Los Angeles being doxxed, the goal of these campaigns can be to obstruct the operations of the federal government, as well as aid and abet criminal activity the federal government is lawfully pursuing. This is very important. So it's not just that, like, being able to say, okay, some of this stuff is very, it's like for them it's a feature, not a bug. Being able to say this stuff is intentionally decentralized, and they're like playing around the edges of legality, because they go, oh, it's free speech, there's publicly available information, whatever. But they're doing this in an organized, coordinated fashion, and the effect of it is they're actually obstructing the operations of the federal government, or aiding and abetting criminal activity that the federal government is actively pursuing lawfully. These are sound, lawful grounds on which to prosecute this. These campaigns are coordinated and perpetrated by actors who have developed a comprehensive strategy to achieve specific policy goals through radicalization and violent intimidation. There are common recurrent motivations and indicia uniting this pattern of violent and terroristic activities under the umbrella of self-described anti-fascism. So we're getting permanently put into the legal record of the United States that anti-fascism as a term is used as a cover for domestic terrorist activity. These movements portray foundational American principles, example, support for law enforcement and border control, as fascist to justify and encourage acts of violent revolution. This anti-fascist lie has become the organizing rallying cry used by domestic terrorists to wage a violent assault against democratic institutions, constitutional rights, and fundamental American liberties. Common threads animating this violent conduct include anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, and anti-Christianity. Support for the overthrow of the United States government, extremism on migration, race, and gender, and hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. As described in the order of September 22, 2025, designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, the groups and entities that perpetrate this extremism have created a movement that embraces and elevates violence to achieve policy outcomes, including justifying additional assassinations. For example, Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin engraved the bullets used in the murder with so-called anti-fascist rhetoric. The United States requires a national strategy to investigate and disrupt networks, entities, and organizations that foment political violence, so that law enforcement can intervene in criminal conspiracies before they result in violent political acts. So they're laying out a pretext here for law enforcement intervening in criminal conspiracies before they result in violent political acts. Through this comprehensive strategy, law enforcement will disband and uproot networks, entities, and organizations that promote organized violence, violent intimidation, conspiracies against rights. This is a very important phrase that we're going to keep hearing. And other efforts to disrupt the functioning of a democratic society. Nematoder says, I love this. It's striking at the mentality, not just symbols. Yes. It's very comprehensive. JTTF shall coordinate and supervise a comprehensive national strategy to investigate, prosecute, and disrupt entities and individuals engaged in acts of political violence and intimidation designed to suppress lawful political activity or obstruct the rule of law. The strategy shall include the investigatory and prosecutorial measures set forth in this section. So here, the president is directing, giving orders to these JTTFs to do specifically these things. They shall investigate potential federal crimes relating to acts of recruiting or radicalizing persons for the purposes of political violence, terrorism, or conspiracy against rights, or the violent deprivation of any citizen's rights. So number one here is investigating potential crimes relating to the acts of recruiting or radicalizing persons. So the recruiters, anybody who's engaged in the act of recruiting people for these actions here is now subject to a joint terrorism task force investigation. They shall also investigate institutional and individual funders and officers and employees of organizations that are responsible for, sponsor, or otherwise aid and abet the principal actors engaging in the criminal conduct described in subsections A and B of this section. So, the recruiters and radicalizers, that's quite broad. Would you say that Hassan Piker has been radicalizing persons for the purpose of political violence, terrorism, or conspiracy against rights, or the violent deprivation of any citizen's rights? I would say Hassan Piker lands squarely underneath Section B here. So they have the recruiters and radicalizers, then they have the sponsors, the funders, the sponsors, or anyone who is aiding and abetting those implicated up here. They shall also investigate non-governmental organizations and American citizens residing abroad or with close ties to foreign governments, agents, citizens, foundations, or influence networks engaged in violations of the FARA Act, Foreign Agents Registration Act, or money laundering by funding, creating, or supporting entities that engage in activities that support or encourage domestic terrorism. And I'll also pause and note that at the same time that this is happening, the president is at the time that the president is delivering this mandate to the JTTFs, which will also be relevant for the DOJ and the Treasury, which are executive agencies that answer to the president. Simultaneously, they are thoroughly and relentlessly establishing the president's absolute authority over the executive agencies through the Supreme Court. Which means then that anybody who has an obligation to follow the instructions of the president pursuant to this memorandum, who does not, can be unilaterally fired for cause and replaced. So this would be NGOs and American citizens residing abroad or with close ties to any foreign organization, essentially, that is funding and money laundering any of the entities that engage in any of the activities that support or encourage any of the above. Also, the JTTF shall consult and coordinate with executive departments and agencies as needed to determine whether such agencies can apply existing authorities or exercise their own authorities as appropriate to support the JTTF's investigations and relevant prosecutions of political violence. So that might be the NSA, it might be DHS, it might be the Treasury, it might be the DOJ. I mean, really, you could branch out through a lot of the different agencies with this. They're keeping this broad. Any executive departments and agencies that can apply existing authorities or exercise their own authorities to support their investigations and relevant prosecutions. The JTTFs may, to the extent permitted by law, request operational assistance from and coordinate with law enforcement partners when investigating domestic terrorism. The National Joint Terrorism Task Force shall provide regular progress updates to the president through the assistant to the president and Homeland Security advisor. So, this is not just set you off and let you run. No, you're going to provide regular progress updates to, I believe the assistant to the president is Stephen Miller. I don't know if that's if that's a formal office. Who is the assistant to the president? Oh, Susie Wiles. Susie Wiles and Kristi Noem. Or no, Homeland Security Advisor is... oh, hold on. It's not Kristi Noem. That's DHS. Homeland Security Advisor is... Oh, why can't I think of who this is? Oh, it's Marco Rubio, I think, isn't it? Oh, okay. No. Okay, so assistant to the president is a wide is kind of a wide term. There's multiple assistants to the president. Stephen Miller is the assistant to the president and Homeland Security advisor. So, the National Joint Terrorism Task Force shall provide regular progress updates to the president through Stephen Miller. That's what this says. The Attorney General shall direct the Department of Justice to prosecute all federal crimes to the maximum extent permissible by law related to the investigations described in subsections A through C of this section. Also, I noted, I saw just a headline on this that something about the death penalty being reintroduced in Washington, D.C. Isn't that interesting? What's the penalty for treason? The Attorney General shall issue specific guidance that ensures domestic terrorism priorities include politically motivated terrorist acts such as organized doxing campaigns, swatting, rioting, looting, trespass, assault, destruction of property, threats of violence, and civil disorder. This guidance shall also include an identification of any behaviors, fact patterns, recurrent motivations, or other indicia common to organizations and entities that coordinate these acts in order to direct efforts to identify and prevent potential violent activity. So basically, anybody involved in organized doxing, swatting, rioting, looting, trespass, assault, destruction of property, threats of violence, and civil disorder are now playing with being charged with domestic terrorism. And the people who would be doing that are going to be answering directly to Stephen Miller. Treasury Secretary, in coordination with the AG, shall make available all resources. So Scott Bessent is going to be closely involved in this as well. The Secretary, acting through the Terrorism and Financial Intelligence Office of the Department of the Treasury, shall deploy investigative tools, examine financial flows, and coordinate with partner agencies to trace illicit funding streams. The Secretary shall provide guidance for financial institutions to file suspicious activity reports and investigate indicia of illicit funding streams to ensure such activity is rooted out at the source and referred for law enforcement action as appropriate. Reading between the lines here, you know what this means? The Secretary shall provide guidance for financial institutions to file suspicious activity reports and investigate indicia of illicit funding streams. This means Scott Bessent is going to be leaning on financial institutions and saying, provide guidance. Provide guidance means we're going to be looking at you very closely. And you may yourselves be found responsible for aiding and abetting these operations if you are not filing suspicious activity reports and investigating indicia of illicit funding streams so comprehensively as to ensure such activity is rooted out at the source and referred for federal law enforcement action. The Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service, also Scott Bessent, shall take action to ensure that no tax-exempt entities are directly or indirectly financing political violence or domestic terrorism. In addition, where applicable, the Commissioner shall ensure that the IRS refers such organizations and the employees and officers of such organizations to the Department of Justice for investigation and possible prosecution. So this one here was for financial institutions. This one here is for tax-exempt entities. All these different NGOs. If any of these NGOs are directly or indirectly financing political violence or domestic terrorism, Scott Bessent will be referring them for investigation and possible prosecution for domestic terrorism. All federal law enforcement agencies with investigative authority shall question and interrogate within all lawful authorities individuals engaged in political violence or lawlessness regarding the entity or individual organizing such actions and any related... interesting. Okay, so all federal law enforcement agencies that have investigative authority shall question and interrogate, specifically, individuals engaged in political violence or lawlessness, more specifically, regarding the entity or individual organizing such actions. Who do you work for? And any related financial sponsorship of those actions prior to adjudication or initiation of a plea agreement. So if you want a plea deal, you got to narc. No narking, no plea deal. Investigation should prioritize crimes such as the following: assaulting federal officers or employees or otherwise engaging in conduct prescribed by 18 U.S.C. 111. So, if you're rioting and assaulting ICE officers, you're going to get arrested. You're going to get charged with domestic terrorism. And if you want a plea deal, you're going to have to sell out whoever's funding you. Conspiracy against rights, there's that one again. Conspiracy to commit offense under 18 U.S.C. 371. I wonder what that is. Looks like it's supposed to be a link, but it's not. What is 18 U.S.C. 371? Come on. Let me highlight the damn thing. Conspiracy to commit offense or to defraud the United States. If two or more persons conspire either to commit any offense against the United States or to defraud the United States or any agency thereof in any manner or for any purpose, and one or more of such persons do any act to affect the object of the conspiracy, each shall be fined. Interesting. Conspiracy to commit any offense against the United States or to defraud the United States. Interesting, okay. Solicitation to commit a crime of violence, money laundering, funding of terrorist acts, or otherwise facilitating terrorism. Arson offenses, very interesting. So, lighting federal buildings on fire. Violations of the RICO Act, and major fraud against the United States. All federal law enforcement agencies with investigative authority shall adopt strategies similar to those used to address violent crime and organized crime to disrupt and dismantle entire networks of criminal activity. Interesting that they included this here. So any federal law enforcement agency that has investigative authority shall adopt, not may adopt, but shall adopt strategies similar to those used to address violent crime and organized crime. So basically, we're going to treat these people like the mob. In the course of and as a result of the investigations directed by Section 2 of this memorandum, which is the section we just finished, the AG may recommend that any group or entity whose members are engaged in activities meeting the definition of domestic terrorism merits designation as a domestic terrorist organization. The Attorney General shall submit a list of any such groups or entities to the President through the Assistant of the President and Homeland Security Advisor, so through Stephen Miller. This is interesting. It seems as if they're actually trying to create domestic terrorist organization as something with actual legal teeth. That's kind of the thing I'm getting from this. Like, of course it's foreign, and they have the foreign terrorist designation that's possible, but it seems as if they're trying to create the legal pretext for domestic terrorist organization being an actual prosecutable thing. The Attorney General and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall designate domestic terrorism a national priority area and develop appropriate grant programs to allocate funding for law enforcement partners to detect, prevent, and protect against threats arising from this area. Yeah, they're creating the legal definition of domestic terrorism and creating the legal and institutional momentum toward targeting it. And maybe you're not prosecuting them for domestic terrorism specifically because domestic terrorism isn't like an actual legal definition per se, but you investigate them for domestic terrorism and then you prosecute them under one of these statutes because we've laid out this pretext of how if they're doing this, this, and this, here's the specific statutes that they're violating. And then just the general provisions. So this JTTF has some legitimate teeth. Serious legitimate teeth. Pam Bondi tweeted this evening, I have witnessed the continued onslaught of violence perpetrated against ICE officers across our country. The DOJ will not stand idly by in the face of such lawlessness. At my direction, I am deploying DOJ agents to ICE facilities and wherever ICE comes under siege to safeguard federal agents, protect federal property, and immediately arrest all individuals engaged in any federal crime. Well, if you are assaulting a federal law enforcement officer, that is a federal crime. So we'll see how this starts bearing out over the next several days. Pursuant to President Trump's recent executive action, I am also instructing the JTTF across the country to disrupt and investigate all entities and individuals engaged in acts of domestic terrorism, including the repeated acts of violence and obstruction against federal agents. So she's doing what she was told in the memo we just read. The DOJ will seek the most serious available charges against all participants in these criminal mobs, including conspiracy offenses, assault offenses, civil disorder offenses, and terrorism offenses. While these never-ending attacks are designed to break our will, they only strengthen our resolve to complete the work begun. To that end, I've directed the FBI, DEA, ATF, and USMS to accelerate our efforts alongside the Department of Homeland Security to locate, apprehend, detain, prosecute, and remove all illegal aliens present in our country. The rule of law will prevail. So, all of the mass deportation efforts that have been happening, that they hired all these ICE agents for, and they've deputized all these different local law enforcement agencies to find and scoop up and deport all these illegal aliens. Now they're attaching FBI, DEA, ATF, and U.S. Marshals on the backs of them, essentially. So we're going to go out, we're going to detain, arrest, and deport all these illegal immigrants. And when Antifa shows up and tries to stop us and starts rioting where we're doing it, here comes these other federal agencies in to arrest them for domestic terrorism. And when they're arrested, they're going to be maximally prosecuted. And if they want to plea out of it, they have to dish on who's funding them. At the same time, Scott Bessent, in his role as Secretary of the Treasury and IRS Commissioner, is going to be he's going to be putting pressure on the financial institutions to file suspicious activity reports to show where all these funding flows are, and also investigating any nonprofit organization to see if they're facilitating all of this. And Stephen Miller said, assets mobilizing. This campaign of terrorism will be brought down. Assets mobilizing. Oh.
The white man is back, baby! The white man is back!
Our guys demanding heavy-handed justice right now are failing the marshmallow test.
Yes. Yeah, Trucklore. Yes, they are. They are. But you know what? They're actually getting it. It's gonna come. This is what I've been saying. It's going to happen. But these things take a tremendous amount of time to spin up. And you have to spin them up in a ruthlessly precise, comprehensive way. You can't just start wildly spazzing out on it. And the other thing that, get back to that tweet I posted earlier, the thing that has really bothered me about this is that the implication in a lot of this commentary that I've seen is you need to start cracking down on this so that more violence doesn't happen. And I think they need to crack down on it, but it's not going to prevent more violence. The violence is actually going to escalate. Once they start cracking down, things are going to get more violent, not less. And I think they know that. Which means if you're going to start cracking down, you need to not just have the capacity to match the level of violence, you have to have the capacity to exceed it, to get full operational dominance, and to be able to continue to escalate it as it continues to escalate. Thank you for the tip, man. Another Stephen Miller tweet, he said, "We are witnessing domestic terrorist sedition against the federal government. The JTTF has been dispatched by the Attorney General pursuant to NSPM 7. All necessary resources will be utilized." Yes, Mr. Sue, the more violence, the more legal authority they have to put it out. Right. And the more the normies come online. So not just the more legal authority they have, the more political authority that they have. Here's a clip of acting ICE director saying to Glenn Beck basically everything that we've just deduced from what we've been reading.
John Brown Club that just put flyers out on the campus of Georgetown University. Hey, fascist, catch. The only political group that celebrates when Nazis die. Join the John Brown Club. Can you tell me the effects you think this and what we might be able to stop by going after some of these groups?
And that's, we are dedicated to the president's mission on that. One component of ICE is Homeland Security investigations. We have some of the best special agents, criminal investigators. We are going to track the money. We are going to track these ringleaders, if you will, right? I can give you an example. We had protests this weekend in Chicago doing our Operation Midway Blitz. And you hear a lot of elected officials say they're out there protesting, they're out there exercising their First Amendment right. But you don't go there and truck in shields, rocks, CS grenades, tear gas grenades, right? That isn't the First Amendment. That right there is just domestic terrorism. And that's what we're focused on. We're focusing on those people that are supporting these groups, those people that are bringing in the material support. When you look at half the people that were arrested for interfering with ICE operations, they're not from the local Chicago area. These people are coming from outside the local area who have no ties to the community. So these are professional agitators that are being brought in.
We talked on the last episode about the ICE, this ICE hiring that they did. And I don't remember who it was, but someone said in the chat that this is basically the 10,000 ICE agents that they hired was essentially them creating their own separate paramilitary force, essentially. And the pretext of it is mass deportations, which is definitely what ICE is for. ICE is for the mass deportations, but also it's because they can use ICE agents to do a lot of these investigations and arrests and not necessarily have to depend on other federal agencies that are much more thoroughly corrupted. And I think as I was driving today, I was thinking about this a lot, that everyone was like, when they came in, they needed to just like disband the FBI or totally overhaul the FBI, like strip it down, fire everybody, and start it all over again from scratch. And obviously, FBI and ICE are different. They're different, but there is a lot of overlap in their roles and responsibilities. And I kind of think that what they've done with ICE is create a separate federal law enforcement agency that they can use, that they can already disperse out throughout the country not under the guise of mass deportations. They are doing the mass deportations, but having a bunch of federal law enforcement getting spread out throughout the country to do mass deportations is more politically palatable than having federal law enforcement go out looking for radical leftists. But it's effectively become the same thing. Mr. Sue says, and again, so they couldn't have done any of this prior to this law. So this isn't a law. This is like an executive pronouncement. This is the chief executive saying, this is a priority. You need to do this. We're putting together this specific task force that is being given these specific responsibilities, this specific to-do list. And here's how the different agencies are going to coordinate to pursue this thing that I'm declaring you must go pursue. Now, had they done something like this before the uptick in violence, it would have been a lot steeper political lift. Like if Trump just took office and immediately was like, all right, we're designating radical leftists as domestic terrorists, and we're gonna put together this joint terrorism task force and arrest Hassan, and like it would have been curtains. There would have been some way that they would have figured out to impeach him, get him out, kill him, whatever. Now, it's much more palatable because they can point to all of this. So this is when they post the things like, Democrats, stop doing this. When Stephen Miller goes on to these interviews and over and over and over again, the Democrat Party is the party of terrorism. They are directly sponsoring and coordinating terrorism in the country. When the president makes all of these posts about this constantly, over and over and over, totally belaboring this point constantly. What they're doing is you can establish a legal pretext, they're establishing the political pretext for taking these sorts of actions. And doing it in such a way that they're boiling the frog in the opposite direction. So as the baseline of the violence escalates, they're escalating rhetorically so that then they can backfill operationally. Regarding these ICE agents, because I've started hearing rumblings. Here's a good example of it. Guys like this. Where's the mobilization? Trump rolled out 10,000 new ICE positions, and they're not even getting back to the initial wave of applicants yet. Infuriating. Pretend it's a fundraiser and start opening up volunteer positions. This is a response to Mystery Grove. Mystery Grove had quote tweeted this guy who said, obviously you've never been in law enforcement. With these protesters, you'd need a 4-to-1 advantage in manpower or fully equipped riot squads. Mystery Grove said it's a serious failure they've not assembled a 4-to-1 advantage in manpower or a riot squad. If they can't assemble those things quickly enough to respond to this, then that's a problem they need to solve. And this is a lot of the guys who are like, I'm not blackpilling, I'm not attributing this to Mystery Grove. Mystery Grove's actually been fantastic through a lot of this. But this is the sort of thing that a lot of the guys, I'm not blackpilling, I'm just being realistic or whatever. This is kind of how they'll do it. Well, they just need to solve this problem. As if they're not. Like, just because you don't see it directly being laid out, because they aren't sending you a personal text message saying, hey, I'm solving this problem and here's how I'm doing it, doesn't mean that it's not being solved. And this is why you have to troost. In times past, if you didn't see something happening on the surface with a Republican administration, it was safe to assume it wasn't happening. Like good things. But after the last 8 months, if you haven't been able to put the pieces together and realize how many times has it been like, oh man, there's this really bad problem. There's this thing that's just going on. It's just terrible. I wish the administration would do something about that. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's some sort of executive order or some sort of big initiative that just plops down in front of us, and it's ruthlessly delineated. Every last little I is dotted and T is crossed. A comprehensive plan laid out to attack this thing that was clearly put together a long time ago. The whole Project 2025 thing, that's what this was. This is not a generic Republican administration. Now, there's a difference between the administration and Congress. If you want to chimp at Republicans, if you want to berate Republican government officials, beat the shit out of Congress. Just absolutely obliterate them, hammer them relentlessly, abuse them. Make them feel like they are public enemy number one. Because by and large, Congress and the administration are at odds. They're playing nice, playing pretend on the surface, but the administration is far ahead, far further down the road than Congress is. And part of the reason why the administration has to do everything the long, hard way is because Congress is full of treasonous subversives. They're the ones who need to have all the ire directed at them. Because if Congress would play ball, it'd make life a lot easier on the administration. It wouldn't totally solve all these problems. A lot of the stuff I'm talking about here today would still be a factor, but it would be easier. So this guy here, where's the mobilization? Trump rolled out 10,000 new ICE positions. I can't believe they got all this funding for these ICE positions. They're not even doing anything with them. Do you understand? Did you even read the ICE job descriptions? No, probably not. No, because you're not going to do anything but tweet. You're not going to bother reading it or even considering applying. Then you might have to have skin in the game. You might actually have to serve your country in some way other than just like yelling at people on Twitter. Mr. Grove said, I actually do think people should have a little bit more patience here. There's no indication that Biden left ICE prepared to deal with a huge upswing in hiring and training on top of a huge increase in operations. Big machines take a long time to turn. Think about that. You get a huge increase in operations after ICE was basically not being used and it was being stripped for parts. You get a huge increase in operations. At the same time, you get a huge upswing in hiring and training. Again, personnel is at a premium here across every executive agency. There's either not enough personnel or it's either a quantity issue or a quality issue. Either there's not enough of them or the ones that are there are bad, or both. Imagine if all of these guys with such a deep, thorough understanding of what time it is, so educated in military history and political theory and elite theory and realpolitik and all this stuff. Imagine if they were the ones getting themselves hired into all these different executive agencies. Imagine. And then, this is where it's really good. Mr. Gove says, message I got about this tweet. The tweet about Biden leaving ICE stripped for parts and having to deal with a huge increase in operations and hiring and training at the same time. Regarding this, I can tell you from experience that nobody was prepared to onboard 10,000 people in less than 6 months. The Federal Law Enforcement Training Center is having instructors pull 7-day weeks. They've shortened training from 16 weeks to 8 weeks for ICE agents. Dorms are at 90% plus capacity. There's no way a quick turnaround could have been done. This is a waiting game. And there was no way around all of this. They have to be trained. Imagine they don't train them. They just send them out there with no training. So now you've got a bunch of guys who are on the front lines who don't know what they're doing. They're not necessarily cleared or screened to see, are they even reliable? Are they Antifa sympathizers themselves? Maybe they're just no experience in this sort of thing and they freak out and start and like shoot some innocent person or something. And now you've got a massive ICE scandal on your hands. That's just massive amounts of political capital for the opposition. So apparently, like, nobody who's mad that they haven't deployed all these new ICE agents bothered to read the job descriptions for them to see that it was 4 months of training that they've shortened to 2 months. Continuing the DMs that Mr. Grove got here. People fail to understand that federal workforce numbers are mostly paper pusher numbers. The actual amount of competent, intelligent law enforcement instructors is very small relative to the amount of DMV or Social Security officers. We can't do much to speed up the training anymore, but what people should do is yell at their local state governments to help facilitate more bed space for ICE in their state. Many places cannot detain people off the streets because they have nowhere to keep them. They have to reserve that space for detainers from jail. So here's another thing. You want to yell at someone? You're feeling anxious and scared and black-pilled? Go yell at your local state governments. Go yell at Republican congressmen, yell at your local state governments, or go actually run for office or get hired or get involved directly with them. Consulting, if you own a business or whatever. That is a useful expenditure of all of this anxious energy that's actually productive. Versus just getting on and yelling at the administration for not doing more every single day. Yes, of course they need to do more. They have made it abundantly clear that they know they need to do more. They're doing everything they can to do more. But virtually every guy in our corner of the world has spent the last, decade or two in some sort of government skeptical ideology, whether it was small government conservatism or libertarianism or anarchism. And like the baseline premise here was that the government is slow and incompetent and is effectively designed to be inefficient. How do you not retain that awareness of how the world is? It's like you're mad that an aircraft carrier isn't moving like a jet ski. They're turning the aircraft carrier. You know how you can tell? Because it's getting bumpy. Starting to get choppy. The waves are picking up. They're turning it, but they turn slow. And no amount of yelling at them will make them will help them turn it quick. You know what will help them turn it quicker? Yelling at the people that will freak out if they turn it faster. In other words, you should be directing your fire at the enemy. This guy asked John Doyle, I don't know what his original tweet was. He must have deleted it, but he said, "Don't you have contacts inside the Trump admin? Why aren't they taking action akin to J6 response?" I got notifications for some people and saw them talking about this, and they're like, "Well, look at the after January 6th, look how fast they just arrested people. It just took them like a week, and they arrested 1,000 people and totally threw the book at them and dragged them out of their underwear. Why aren't they doing that to Antifa?" And this, it feels too stupid to even address. What are you talking about? Why did the FBI that was run by James Comey, why did that FBI have no problem whatsoever with an incoming Joe Biden president, with Trump at like his political nadir? Why did they have no problem just swooping in and arresting a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of Republicans? And why can't the current Trump FBI do the same thing? Are you serious? What? Why is it rigged against us? Did you just wake up from a coma? It's been rigged against us for decades. This stuff doesn't change overnight. The amount of legwork and lack of institutional buy-in required for the Trump FBI to function like the lame duck Trump FBI did, in the opposite direction ideologically, it's completely night and day. You're the sucker for ever thinking that in September of 2025, the FBI was just going to be, as an entire unit, operating with ruthless efficiency, arresting leftoids in the streets. You're a moron if you thought that was even reasonably possible. And that's not a reflection on the administration. I'd love for it to be. And make it real easy. Just put them under political pressure and they'll fix it. That's the I want this to be over and I want to be able to just pull the ripcord and then have everything be better now. No, that's not how this works. We're playing the long game. Which means we don't get the easy out, where we just get to do everything they did to us right back to them 8 months after taking power. It took them decades of coordinated, relentless, all of society effort to get to the point where they could just round up 80-year-old grandmas for taking a tour of the Capitol and throw them in jail for the rest of their lives. With basically no political pushback at all. Thinking that somehow all of a sudden, just because there's a Republican president now, the FBI just flips and just operates the opposite way, this is like a child's understanding of politics. I can't believe people are actually thinking this way. Why aren't they taking action akin to the J6 response? Yeah, they've got a lot on their plate, and they're doing as much as possible. John Doyle was much better in his response. He said, yes, they told me that every day well-meaning young patriots take turns finding excuses to walk into the Oval Office and distract Trump with various things, tabloid gossip, girls they're seeing, Diet Coke, sports news, etc., so that they can sneak a press of the fix everything button, which Trump refuses to interact with because he secretly hates us all and thinks it would be really great if we all killed ourselves. I'll keep you updated. This is what, so many of our guys have been reduced to thinking that there's this big fix everything button in there, and they're just choosing not to fix it. They're choosing not to press the fix everything button because they're too scared or something. I'm begging you guys, please pull your head up above water for a minute and have the vaguest sense of the current state of things. More bangers from Diomedes Appreciator. This guy. I think this sort of guy means well. Like, I understand where they're coming from, but it's so silly. If Trump gave the word, he would have 100,000 armed men kissing their loved ones goodbye and heading out the door with their AR. It's a lack of will. And going where? Being fed by whom? Housed by whom? Targeting whom? And doing what? Led by whom? Relying on this is assuring the country gets torn apart by the left. We can win, but we have to be realistic and pragmatic. Just like, think about this for a second. Trump tweets, "Give me 100,000 patriots in D.C. Bring your guns." Then what? 100,000 armed dudes who are united by their desire, like the only thing that they all have in common is their desire to go shoot some people. They may or may not give a shit about Trump. They're just like, hey, let's go shoot some people in DC. And they all descend on DC. Now you've got an army of 100,000 guys there with their guns, ready to just do some stuff. Then what? Oh no, you have some of them go to this part of the country and some of them go to that part of the country and then some of them go to the other. Okay, who's coordinating all of this? How are you ensuring that you're not just, of those 100,000, that 20,000 of them aren't Antifa people or cartel members? Or just some like crazy dude that's totally untrustworthy and unreliable and is just ready to boog. Where are you housing them? How are you coordinating and directing and organizing them? Are you just going to like assign some personnel from, I don't know, DHS or something? So you're going to pull people away from the deportation efforts or whatever other thing they're working on to now corral a bunch of Joe Schmoes with guns who are just ready to go do some shit. Like, this is totally preposterous. This is Saturday morning cartoon logic. It's a good point for Mr. Sue. That doesn't look like we're in control, and the rest of the country will panic and pull their money out of the country. It's third world child's play. Right. Yeah, now all of a sudden, okay, you've got 100,000 armed dudes just trucking around the country, going places, doing some shit. We're going to go shoot some shit up somewhere. All of that money that Trump has worked so hard to funnel back into the U.S. is going to hightail it right the hell out. Really good point, Jukebox Wizard. The thing about this post is that the administration is already asking guys to leave their loved ones and join the fight. Join ICE. If Trump gave the word, he would have 100,000 armed men kissing their loved ones goodbye and heading out the door with their AR. Last I checked, there was something like 100,000, more than 100,000 applications for ICE. I wonder if this guy applied. Diomedes Appreciator, another banger. Do you think the entrenched defense bureaucracy that commands our military is going to turn on a dime and battle its own kind because Trump tells them to? The same military that just flat refused to obey his orders last time around? Why would they do it now? And tied to that, he says, a lot of guys here saying martial law obviously never sat through 20 years of domestic extremist trainings where the white guy from Idaho is guaranteed to be the bad guy. There's a lot of work to be done. Get on board and help or get out of the way. I don't think a lot of people appreciate that if Trump declares martial law and sends the military into the streets, the odds are much greater that our guys start getting rounded up and shot than that Antifa gets any of it. As of right now, there's a hell of a lot of purging from the military that still has to be done. And that stuff takes time. Our responsibility is to do everything we possibly can to hold the country together long enough so that the administration can lay down all of the precedent and the pretext and do all the firings and everything else in order to get us to where we want to go. Our responsibility is to keep shit from popping off to our greatest ability. Hold it together by threads if we have to. Duct tape and baling wire. Do everything we can to keep the country together and focused and motivated. The worst possible thing to do is start demoralizing everyone. Making people check out. Making people feel like there's no hope. Like there's no one at the wheel. It's every man for himself. That's when things start spiraling down. If things start spiraling, our job is to convince as many people as possible that they aren't. Because if people believe things aren't spiraling, they'll spiral slower. If things were spiraling and everyone believed things were not spiraling, things would not spiral. That's how these sorts of things work. Human belief is tremendously powerful. The administration has to fix an extraordinary amount of things. All at the same time. In an ideal world, they could do this sequentially, but they can't. Because they've got midterms and another presidential election to figure out. We've got probably 15 years, 10 or 15 years worth of shit that has to get fixed. And we got to hold it together. So everyone's got to play their part. And I do not give a shit what you think of the administration or the president. It does not matter one bit. As some guy replied to me, he's like, oh, given everything they do for Israel, it's hard for me to believe that we can't do better than him. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean do better than him? He's the president. He's going to be the president for at least another 3 years. And what are you going to do? Just like, we're a week away from the country just not even existing anymore, and you're concerned about like doing better than him as president? This is totally incoherent buffoonery. He's going to be the president for 3 years. So anything that happens between now and then is going to happen with him as president. If you want a different president, you got 3 years. A hell of a lot of shit's going to happen in the next 3 years. What makes you so confident there's even going to be an election in 3 years? What makes you so confident you're even going to have a choice of another president? One of these things can't be true. It can't be that, oh, we could do better than him as president, and if he doesn't get his shit together, the country's not going to exist anymore. The country's obviously going to keep existing. There's going to be a presidential election in 2028. And Donald Trump is going to be the president until 2028. So, he's the president. There's nothing you can change about that. That's why I say it does not matter whether you like him or not. If you want the administration to do more than it has done, then they need political capital. Everything they have to slow walk, because they don't have sufficient political capital to fast track it. So if you want them to fast track it and you're actively attacking their political capital, do you realize you're a fucking idiot? This is why your job is to, if you think that they're not moving fast enough, the best way to solve that problem is to do everything you can to raise as much political capital for them as possible, as fast as possible. This seems like really simple calculus to me. It's not even calculus. It's like basic addition and subtraction. Oh, you're coping. All right, whatever, man. Very good post here, and I'm going to wrap it on this. I'm going to leave the Yarvin thing for another time because it's almost 2 o'clock here, and I've got to get up in a few hours for church, and I'm exhausted. So, didn't expect to rant as much as I did tonight, but I got rallied up and got going as I got going. So, from the Fat American, a great name, he's quote tweeting this from Woman Definer. So Woman Definer says, we honestly have a bunch of useless people representing us. Their refusal to do anything of permanence is stunning. The entirety of the GOP has a once-in-a-lifetime mandate to do things right now, and they can't even bring themselves to arrest Antifa members or politicians outright breaking the law. You can't tell us we're a nation of laws when only one side has to follow them ever. This is what Democrats do to people talking about committing violence online. We can't even get arrests. You probably shouldn't, just like a general rule, you probably shouldn't tweet something this dramatic when that thing that you tweeted with a single action by the administration can look really dumb 24 hours later. Just kind of just like a basic rule of posting online, but, you know, to each his own, I suppose. The Fat American says, I only want to discuss this once because there are much more interesting things in life than daily news. Trump cannot do everything the right wants because there are not enough rightists staffing the federal government. Here's the way it works. Your congressman has staffers who read emails and draft bills. They're all gay. The FBI has agents hired under Mueller, Comey, and Wray, who all get promoted infiltrating and prosecuting right-wing extremists. They don't want to prosecute left-wing extremists, let alone James Comey. The DOJ has career lawyers who spent decades climbing the ladder by accepting liberal norms around human rights, due process, etc. The DC media has White House and Capitol Hill press corps journalists from blue state universities who had to pass Dem-controlled screening tests, liberal cocktail parties, Democrat newsroom editors, etc., etc. The State Department, the Department of War, Labor, DHHS, OMB, OPM, etc., etc., etc. They all work and live in D.C., a one-party state, 90% plus Democrat. They all go to wonderful schools, have big, beautiful houses. Everyone's at the top of their careers. D.C. is opposite land. It's the imperial center. The only trans kids in their high schools are the nice, weird sons of successful bureaucrats. The only illegal immigrants are polite housemaids and cooks. The small minority of Republicans are weird holdouts. They don't make sense and they don't matter. Everything is filtered through this class consciousness. You make as much sense to DC as a small barking dog makes to a wolf. This is a class of people. They have a class consciousness. They might come from America, but they go to DC and they become DC. They travel to America and all they see is what DC sees. Within this world, Trump is going full speed ahead, smashing as much as he can and trying to build an alternative. The people in Trump's orbit running the country, trying to run the country, know what's up. They know exactly what needs to be done. They are terrifyingly competent. These people all suffered lawfare ostracism, some of them jail. They understand what time it is. There also aren't enough of them. There are not enough patriots in Washington, D.C. to do all the work that needs to be done. Therefore, if you want to help, these are the best things you can do. 1. Move to D.C. Network with patriots. You will find opportunities. They need you. I can already hear, oh, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? Here's all the reasons I wouldn't get, it frees me out, and I'm white, and they discriminate against me, and... Yes. You, the one that just had all those thoughts run through your head? Oh, it'd be uncomfortable, and oh, it's dangerous, there's blacks there. If you're the one who had those thoughts running through your head, please, you personally, do not move to D.C. They don't need you. You would not contribute productively. If you can make it past this point, let's go to number 2. Get involved in your local political networks. The bad congressional staffers in Washington all come from Lansing or Richmond. There are patriots in your community trying to change things. They need you. Number 3, support the admin online. They're trying to steer a vast ship and they need support. They need you. But complaining, always be chimping, whining that Republicans are cucked does not help. It signals that you aren't connected to anyone and don't know what's going on. It signals that you aren't loyal, and the people who matter will ignore you. There are people working desperately hard to save our country, and they are badly outnumbered. They have every power ready. But everything they do, a careerist does the opposite. Misunderstands. Delays. And then, well, gee, we tried to prosecute Antifa, but it just doesn't exist. We can't find it. If you want to change this, you need to physically move to D.C., where politics is being done, and help our outnumbered patriots. Or get out of the way. You need to physically move to D.C. You need to physically move to D.C. You need to physically move to D.C. If you do not work in politics and you do not live in D.C., you are not in politics. You are in posting about politics. If you are not in politics and are posting, Republicans don't know what time it is, you are deluded. You don't know anything. How could you know what time it is? The DC bubble has been injured, but it's strong. It takes incredible effort to break that bubble. Move to DC. And Yarvin quote tweeted that thread and said, all true, but a lot of these precious people are working on bread and butter issues, real things which need to get done, saving money, etc. All BS, no one cares. Others couldn't get hired because of spurious loyalty tests, spicy tweets, libertarianism, etc. Right idea, but. And here is where I must depart from Yarv. He says, moreover, it's possible to make the careers work for us, but it's necessary to absolutely bully and terrorize them. This was happening in the winter. It stopped, I get the impression, in the spring. And the fat American says, that's right, and a lot of the careerists can be trained like dogs, but the culture they swim in is 90% D, Democrat. Changing that takes more than politicos and appointments. It takes a whole culture. Artists and museum curators, bankers and poets. DC needs you. And he continued, Yarvin is right. This is an important point. Based world has a lot to do. Egg prices, oil, healthcare, etc. But if those don't give us power, they can be undone. They are actually distractions from power. The power is 90% plus Democrat in DC. We need to change DC. Move to DC. Now, I do recognize that there's some people who simply can't, for whatever reason. There are valid reasons. There's plenty of people who are going to make up reasons and pretend that they're valid. And then they're just going to keep going on just posting. But if you're making up reasons why you can't, if you could, you're making up reasons why you can't, at the very least, you can support the administration. You can get involved locally. Because you also we don't need everybody abandoning the other local communities they come from. We need work there. We need our guys in the Imperial Center. Those who can must. Those who can't must work locally. And by all means, you must not counter-signal the administration. Loyalty is the ultimate political value. There is no utility in counter-signaling them. I'm not saying this because I like Donald Trump. I'm not making a feels case here. I'm making a ruthlessly pragmatic case. There is negative utility in publicly counter-signaling the Trump administration right now. The thing they need more than anything else is political capital to do the things they want to do faster. If you are counter-signaling them, you are slowing them down. I will leave you with this message from your president directly. Be motivated.
Our ancestors climbed mountains, conquered oceans, crossed deserts, and trekked over wide open plains. They charged into thunderous battles, plunged into grave dangers, and they were soldiers and farmers and workers and warriors and explorers and patriots. They built towns into cities, tribes into kingdoms, ideas into industries, and small islands into mighty empires. You're a part of all of that. They were champions for their people who never gave up and who never, ever gave in. Their values defined our national identities. Their visions forged our magnificent destiny. Everybody in this room is a part of it in your own way. Each of us inherits the deeds and the myths, the triumphs, the legacies of our own heroes and founders who so bravely showed us the way. Our ancestors gave everything for homelands that they defended with pride, with sweat, with blood, with life, and with death. Now the righteous task of protecting the nations that they built belongs to each and every one of us.
It belongs to each and every one of us. Don't squander it. All right, guys. Thank you for showing up for this late labe, for sticking around deep into the wee hours of the night. Appreciate all of you. I am going to go get some sleep. Go do the same. Have yourselves a good weekend. I will be streaming either tomorrow or on Sunday. Right now, I'm kind of leaning more toward Sunday early afternoon. We'll see. Go follow the King Pill Telegram channel. That's where I will update you guys on when and what time I'm going to stream. And yes, I do know tomorrow is Saturday. We're going to church because there's a baptism. So baptism and liturgy tomorrow. Technically today. But thank you guys. Go join the King Pill Discord. And yeah. I love all of you. I leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough.